Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga. Chapter 4181. On the mountain peak where Linling was, Tian Shui Great World Deity and Linling were also shocked, especially Linling. He was even more speechless than Yu and the others. Did they break through after listening to his boasting? However, he also realized that a warrior's breakthrough was dependent on the right time, right place, and right people. Those who broke through must have heard what he said and suddenly gained confidence, thinking that he was a reincarnated god. Therefore, with great courage and perseverance, they broke through the gate. There were so many people in the mountain, so it was normal for some of them to break through. Is this the so-called preaching of the great Tao? At this moment, the white-robed lady looked at Linling in disbelief. At this moment, the blue-robed young man seemed to be shining with the light of a god. Linling blushed when she looked at him. He said indifferently, "All right, I've given you what I should. Goodbye." "Wait, Linling, who are you?" Tian Shui Great World Deity suddenly shouted. Her words made Linling pause. He shook his head mysteriously and didn't say anything. He just turned around and left. "I'm the trial taker Linling. That's all." A faint voice came out from Linling's mouth and echoed in the mountain range. However, to those who believed in Linling, Linling was even more unfathomable. He might be a reincarnated god from the ancient times. And for those who hated Linling, it was Linling who had pushed his pretentiousness to the limit, hiding his achievements and fame. Anger. The people of the Seventh Emperor Alliance were so angry that their teeth were itching. "Linling, do you know the wood spirit queen of the Kai Yuan River? She's facing a great calamity now. Some people suspect that they are related to the will of the world. If you know them, you can go there now and save them." At this moment, Tian Shui Great World Deity's voice came again. Linling nodded and didn't say anything. He called Yu and the others and left. Why is he so powerful? Looking at Linling, who left casually, Princess Tian had a complicated expression. Her eyes were filled with reluctance. "Brother Linling, I didn't expect you to be so talented in acting. You were fooled by Miao's true inheritance." After leaving Miao Shen's true inheritance, Yu and the others began to laugh like flowers blooming in the wind. "You're teasing me." Linling smiled and stretched his hands towards Yu and the others' armpits, making them giggles. "Linling, how do you know so many ancient myths?" And Yu's cheeks were flushed, but she still looked at Linling. Ancient gods, he said. The ancient ancients, the ancient times' stories, the story, the origin. Linling looked at the endless sky with a complicated look in his eyes. If all of this was true, then Linling had also walked out of the hometown of an ancient god. Let's not talk about this. I heard from Miao Shen that the magical forest in the Kaiyuan River is a little dangerous. Then, Linling frowned. When he saw Yu and the others were puzzled, he immediately explained. Back then, when Linling had just gone to the Kaiyuan River, he had helped the Wood Spirit Clan, Rock Spirit Clan, and Fire Spirit Clan in the magical forest. Now, according to Miao Shen's legend, they seemed to be in danger and were regarded as the will of the world. Since it was related to the will of the world, it was no small matter. Therefore, Linling had to go and take a look no matter what. After hearing Linling's words, Yu and the others immediately nodded. After they left the Tianzhou, they immediately moved forward along the void and headed straight for the Kaiyuan River. The Kaiyuan River was one of the forbidden areas in the 9 prefectures. There were endless secrets hidden in it. There were even rumors that on the other side of the Kaiyuan River was the hidden place of the dragon tribe. However, in the history of the 9 prefectures, not many people had managed to reach the other side of the river. Linling was one of them. While they were hurrying, Linling also checked the scabbard. Now, he had found another broken sword. The scabbard would definitely increase its power by a lot. As for the scabbard, Linling never needed to comprehend it. As long as he found the broken sword, he would be able to display the power of the scabbard. Of course, although this method was fast, there was also a fatal danger. For example, if he didn't find the corresponding broken sword, the sword would kill its owner. Suddenly, a crisp sound rang out. The originally hot scabbard suddenly began to cool down. Linling instantly knew that this was the reason why the broken sword had merged with the tyrannical song sword. Clang! Linling immediately stopped and pulled out the sword. The new tyrannical song sword was even more majestic. On the huge sword body, there was demonic energy flowing like water. The visual impact was very strong. Realm essence was activated. With a boom, a powerful force exploded from Lin Ling's body, causing Yu and the others to fly backward. All of them looked at Lin Ling in shock. 100 strands of divine power. Lin Ling looked at the tyrannical song sword in his hand in disbelief. He was extremely shocked. Although Emperor God Zhonggang had once said that this sword was extremely powerful and was the sword of the sword demon, Lin Ling never expected that just finding a broken sword would give birth to 100 strands of divine power. One had to know that currently, Lin Ling had only cultivated and comprehended more than 50 strands of divine power. It seemed that Lin Ling had more than 150 strands of divine power. With such strength, Lin Ling was undoubtedly one step closer to becoming one of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 prefectures. If I open my 7th Dantian, I will definitely have the strength to fight against Luli Empress. Holding the magnificent sword, Lin Ling's heart was filled with heroism. Brother Ling. At this moment, Yu and the others also flew over and looked at Lin Ling in shock. Hee, this old friend, your strength has finally increased. Lin Ling immediately smiled and nodded. As he spoke, the tyrannical song sword seemed to have sensed Lin Ling's voice. On the sword body, killing intent flowed like water from the sword tip to the sword hilt. It looked extremely beautiful. Lin Ling put away the tyrannical song sword and patted the vines on his left shoulder. Now, among his companions, only little Kunlun's strength had not increased. However, in reality, little Kunlun was 1,000 times stronger than before. It was just that Lin Ling's strength had increased too quickly, so he felt that it was slow. However, if one were to take martial gods as an example, at least 60% of them would not be a match for little Kunlun. Let's go! Next, Lin Ling also increased his speed and rushed toward the Kaiyuan River. After a long time, a dazzling Milky Way appeared in the distance. Even though it was far away, Lin Ling and the others could still hear the rumbling sound of the river. They had arrived at the Kaiyuan River. Lin Ling's eyes immediately revealed a nostalgic look. It was here that he had obtained the inheritance treasure of the gods, and met the Kurishin of the 4 great gods. He had also brought the God Slayer alliance to its peak. It could be said that the Kaiyuan River was also the place that had allowed Lin Ling to completely transform. Of course, the most important thing was that this was the place where Lin Ling had brought Inuer back. And now, Lin Ling had come again. That's the Kaiyuan River. It was obviously the first time Yu and Shen Yuan Goer had come here, so they could not help but be surprised. Chapter 4182. Without stopping, Lin Ling led the 3 ladies straight to the Kaiyuan River. Although the Kaiyuan River was huge, there was only one entrance. They could go through the entrance to reach the bottom of the Kaiyuan River. Stop! You can't enter the Kaiyuan River. When Lin Ling found the entrance, a loud shout came from the front. At this moment, the enormous entrance to the origin opening river was blocked by countless people, and all of these people were at the martial god realm. When Lin Ling was here last time, most of them were at the martial ancestor realm and half-step martial god realm. However, all of them were at the martial god realm now. There must be some secret hidden here. Who are you? Lin Ling spoke indifferently when he saw the group of people. It's none of your business. Get lost. Outside the entrance, an old man immediately shouted angrily. He didn't take Lin Ling seriously. Oh, what a beautiful lady. Not far away, a middle-aged man looked at Yu and the others with a lewd smile and licked his lips. His eyes were filled with evil intentions. Martial god Tianji, don't cause trouble. However, someone beside him advised him. We've been guarding this place for a year. It's been too boring. The middle-aged man shook his head and ignored that person's warning. Die. However, as soon as he moved, a black shadow immediately attacked him. It was extremely fast and charged into the middle-aged man's body. Then, the middle-aged man's body trembled and his face became distorted. Save me, save me. He cried out in pain. In the end, he stopped moving. A strange jellyfish swam out of his body with countless tentacles. Then, it flew back to Lin Ling. It was the evil ghost jellyfish. The evil ghost jellyfish was currently in the form of a divine fetus. How could the middle-aged man resist it? After it charged into the middle-aged man's body, it immediately devoured everything. The person who killed the middle-aged man was naturally Lin Ling. That was because the middle-aged man wanted to harm Yu and the others. In Tianzhou, There were people who harassed Yu and the others. However, Lin Ling didn't care because those people were too weak. Lin Ling didn't want to attack them. However, it was different now. Those people were all at the martial god realm. As a man, Lin Ling naturally wouldn't allow his wife to be humiliated in front of such experts. You've got guts. Everyone looked at him coldly when they saw that Lin Ling had killed a martial god realm expert without saying a word. You are the ones who are bold, Lin said coldly. Because at this moment, he was even more certain that something had happened in the demon forest. I ask you, why are you blocking the entrance? Who are you? Lin Ling said again. Ha ha ha. Outside the entrance, the martial gods laughed. Then, an old man who was sitting cross-legged slowly stood up. His aura was extremely terrifying. Behind him, a demonic shadow was baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. It turned into the shadow of a giant bat. It was obvious that it was a divine fetus talent. Moreover, it had reached the innate realm. A coffin floated not far from him. At that moment, the coffin slowly opened and a young man walked out. The young man's clothes were torn and there was a rotten smell on his body. When he opened his eyes, his gaze fell on Lin Ling as if he wanted to devour Lin Ling. Of course, this kind of power had no effect on Lin Ling. You don't deserve to talk to me. Before the old man could speak, the young man said coldly. His voice was filled with disdain. It was obvious that these two people were the leaders. Kid, I don't care who you are or who is behind you, but you can't interfere with what we want to do. You can't afford to offend the people behind us. I'll give you 3 breaths of time. Apologize and get lost immediately. I'll spare your life. The old man said coldly. Hearing this, Lin Ling laughed. Did the old man think Lin Ling was an idiot because he was young? The old man seemed to be letting Lin Ling go, but in fact, he was testing Lin Ling. If Lin Ling really apologized, the old man would probably kill Lin Ling immediately. This was because he saw that Lin Ling was afraid. Naturally, he knew that Lin Ling was guilty. Unfortunately, regardless of whether it was a test or not, Lin Ling was not afraid of them at all. He was not afraid at all. He wanted to know who was the mastermind behind the scenes who could summon this group of powerhouses. I'm talking to you because I'm giving you face. If I don't give you face, you'll definitely regret it. Lin Ling slowly pulled out the tyrannical song sword. The 6 stanchions in his body started to roll quietly. I wonder how they'll regret it. Seeing that Lin Ling was about to make a move, everyone activated their boundary essence. Their eyes were filled with killing intent. That's death. Lin Ling finally made his move. There was no need for him to fuse his talents. He could crush the group of martial gods with his physical strength and boundary essence. Swoosh! With a slash of his sword, a martial god was cut in half before he could make a move. Swoosh! Another sword strike, and another head flew into the air. With Lin Ling's current strength, only the leader of the 9 states' 10 evils could contend with him. However, that was all. His speed is so fast. Seeing that Lin Ling's sword had taken their lives, the martial gods were shocked and exclaimed. However, the person who exclaimed was instantly killed. Killing martial gods was like chopping vegetables. Gradually, everyone felt that a nightmare had arrived. Capture those women. Then, the remaining people looked at Lin Ling. They wanted to capture Yu and the others to make Lin Ling afraid. One had to admit that they were extremely sinister. However, were Yu and the others weak? Yu and and the others looked at each other. They sneered and attacked as well. One by one, they unleashed their divine fetuses. Xian Yuan activated the flipping sky seal that he had obtained from Grandfather Tang and smashed a martial god into a meat patty. Oh no! These women have divine fetuses and the divine artifacts in their hands are very fierce. The people did not expect that these delicate beauties would be so strong. Those who had wanted to take advantage of them were now so scared that their legs turned to jelly. Where did these people come from? Why are they so fierce? The 3 women have divine fetuses and divine artifacts. That young man does not seem to have any divine fetuses, but his strength is simply overwhelming. They are definitely not ordinary people. As more and more martial gods were killed, the remaining people became more and more terrified. Boy, your strength is not bad. Let me fight you. Use your full strength. Seeing that the people around him were dying, the old man finally decided to attack. A pair of bat wings sprouted from his back. His entire body was surging with demonic qi, causing the surroundings to explode continuously. His cultivation was at the peak of the martial god realm and he had 18 divine forces. No wonder he was the leader. His strength was indeed terrifying. He was even more powerful than Duan Wuhan in the past. You are not qualified to make me use my full strength. However, this strength was like a chicken or a dog to Lin Ling. Swoosh. Chapter 4183. The old man immediately sensed the fierce murderous aura and demonic aura. He was shocked and immediately unleashed all his strength. Countless black lights surrounded him and formed a huge black ball in front of him. The black ball kept spinning and emitted a power that could crush one's soul. However, when Lin Ling's sword slashed at him, the black ball that condensed all of the old man's strength was instantly slashed open. The old man who was behind the black ball had a sword mark in the middle of his head that went all the way to his legs. He looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. You are. Before he could finish his sentence, his body was torn apart from both sides. He couldn't be more dead. Who are you? However, the stinky young man continued the old man's words and looked at Lin Ling with a face full of fear. He no longer had the disdainful look from before. He was so scared that the rotten flesh on his body kept dripping off. Lin Ling's previous slash made him realize that he was no match for Lin Ling. You should be from the land of eternal slumber, right? Lin Ling held his sword and walked toward the young man step by step. The young man was surrounded by a few people as if he was being protected. However, when Lin Ling arrived, those people all moved aside and didn't dare to block his path. They didn't even think about sneaking up on him when Lin Ling walked past them. They knew that the young man's strength had reached a level that defied the natural order. If they attacked such a strong person, they would die even faster. Yes. I'm the successor of the land of eternal slumber. The young man said nervously. Back then, I heard from the Gu King that he had found a successor. It turns out that it's a piece of trash like you. How disappointing. Lin Ling stopped in front of the young man and said calmly. Gu King? You know the Gu King? Hearing that, the young man's eyes lit up. I know him. How can I not know him? Lin Ling nodded. His words made the young man happy as if he had met an acquaintance. However, Lin Ling's next sentence sent him straight to hell. It was impossible for him to recover. Gu King died in my hands. Lin Ling said indifferently. Ah, you killed the Gu King? You're lying to me. You're lying to me. Gu King is the leader of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils. No, the Gu King is indeed dead. Furthermore, he died in Spirit Light City. It is said that he was killed by the trial challenger Lin Ling. Could it be that you are trial taker Lin Ling? The young man said incoherently. Finally, he raised his head and looked at Lin Ling with even more fear in his eyes. As for the people around him, their faces were instantly filled with one emotion. Terror. Trial challenger Lin Ling. How could they not know? Not only was this expert a follower of a god, his strength had also reached a heaven-defying level. Whether it was in terms of strength or status, they were like eggs hitting a rock. Now, can you tell me what you're doing here and whose orders you're following? Lin Ling said, still looking at the young man. You won't kill me if I tell you? The young man gritted his teeth. His desire to live made him unwilling to give up any chance. Swoosh. However, just as he finished speaking, Lin Ling chopped off his head and killed him directly. Bargaining with me? Idiot. Tell me obediently. If I'm in a good mood, I might let you go. To be honest, you're not qualified to negotiate with me. Lin Ling shook his head and looked at the remaining people around him. I'll tell you. We were ordered by martial god Huan Bo, one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures, to seal off Kaiyuan River. The people around him immediately scrambled to speak. Martial god Huan Bo? Hearing that, Lin Ling frowned slightly. Yes. Since the fall of martial god Qilin and martial god Wen Tian, many martial gods have risen in the 9 prefectures in an attempt to replace the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Martial god Huan Bo is one of them. He has also been recognized by the other martial gods and has become one of the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures. Sir, this is all we know. Spare our lives, spare our lives. Lin Ling was even more puzzled when he heard these voices. Although the top 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures were very powerful, the wood spirit tribe of the demonic forest was no small matter either. If it wasn't necessary, martial god Huan Bo shouldn't have provoked the demonic forest. Unless martial god Huan Bo was just a pawn and had been ordered to do so. It seemed like the only way to find out the answer was to enter the demonic forest. What's the situation in the demonic forest now? Lin Ling asked again. The demonic forest is resisting tenaciously because someone pleaded for mercy on their behalf when they were about to be destroyed. Furthermore, the Wood Spirit Tribe and the others joined that powerhouse. The person who pleaded for mercy on their behalf was a Yuan Venerate martial god. The Yuan Venerate martial god has always been alone. Now, he seems to want to develop his own force, so he has also taken a liking to the Wood Spirit Tribe and the others. However, they are still negotiating and we don't know the outcome. However, if the Yuan Venerate martial god no longer cares about the demonic forest, then the demonic forest will be in trouble. The surrounding people all began to speak out. Scram. After obtaining the information he needed, Lin Ling didn't kill them. Although Lin Ling looked down on people who obeyed his orders obediently, he couldn't be bothered to make a move. Thank you, Senior. Thank you, Senior. Some of the surrounding martial gods kowtowed, some saluted, and some fled in terror. What a bunch of vile people. Yu and the others also walked over when they saw them flee. To them, martial gods were like gods in the sky. They had once looked up to them and envied them. However now, even these godly existences were acting lowly like lapdogs. Naturally, they despised them. After all, they definitely wouldn't beg for mercy if they fell into the hands of the enemy, let alone betray their own people. Of course, while they despised them, they also felt a little sense of accomplishment. After all, being able to make a martial god flatter Lin Ling showed how strong he was. I never imagined that a Yuan Venerate martial god would also interfere. However, the Wood Spirit Race, the Stone Spirit Race, and the Fire Spirit Race are all my people. A Yuan Venerate martial god is trying to snatch them from me. Lin Ling smiled faintly as he looked at the entrance. He was the totem of the three races. How could he let anything happen to the three races? Furthermore, he couldn't let a Yuan Venerate martial god snatch them away. Then, Lin Ling led Yu and the others through the entrance. How beautiful! Yu and Shen Yuan Go-er, who were here for the first time, were immediately filled with curiosity as they watched the surging river flow above their heads. Lin Ling smiled but didn't interrupt them. Instead, a map appeared in his hand. This map had been given to him by Brother Woody. It would allow Lin Ling to find the whereabouts of the demonic forest. After all, the map of the Kaiyuan River was constantly changing. This way. Then, Lin Ling made up his mind and quickened his pace with Yu and the others. Chapter 4184. Back then, when the second master of the place of eternal slumber, Wanyan Shijing, arrived, the tribes in the forest were in a terrible fix. Now that the 10 martial gods had been mobilized, the demon forest would undoubtedly be difficult to resist. However, Lin Ling was a trial taker under Lei Gong. In the 9 states, there were not many who dared to disrespect Lei Gong. Unless it was the Spirit Nation. Of course, if it was a life-and-death feud, they would not have to care about Lei Gong's face. The outcome would be to perish together with Lin Ling. After all, if Lin Ling was killed, Lei Gong would not let the matter rest. As they walked through the forest, Lin Ling saw that many tall trees had collapsed. The forest was filled with sorrow. He could not understand why someone would attack them when the 3 tribes were fighting against the world martial arts. Brother Ling, they will be fine. Sensing Lin Ling's cold expression, Yu immediately comforted him. Lin Ling nodded. According to his memories, he was getting closer and closer to where the wood spirits resided. Back then, Lin Ling had united the 3 tribes here to resist the place of eternal slumber. He remembered that Wanyan Shijing had arrived but was forced to flee with his tail between his legs. Back then, this was also where I obtained the fruit of good. At this moment, the giant ghost also floated out and sighed. This evil ghost was becoming more and more humane. Hee. This forest will belong to us from now on. At this moment, laughter came from afar. Then, a few figures walked through the dense forest, chatting as they walked. Of course, they soon discovered Lin Ling and the others and were all shocked. This was because the Kaiyuan River had been sealed. It should be impossible for anyone to enter. Who are you people? Immediately, they walked quickly toward Lin Ling and the others. Yu and the others stared at them calmly. They realized that these people were different from humans. They had long golden hair, pointed ears, and were extremely handsome. People from the Gold Spirit tribe. Instead, it was Lin Ling who recognized these people. The Gold Spirit clan was one of the 5 spirits ancient clans in the Kai Yuan River. However, the territory of the Gold Spirit clan was in the Guyuan Mountains. Now they had come to the demonic forest. You don't have the right to ask who we are. However, this demon forest is my territory. When did I agree to let you in? Lin Ling's face turned cold. Ha ha ha. Those gold spirits roared with laughter when they heard this. However, not long after they started laughing, Lin Ling's powerful aura exploded, causing them to tremble in fear. Plop. In the end, he knelt down and kowtowed continuously. With their strength, how could they withstand Lin Ling's divine might? Speak. Why are the gold spirits here? Lin Ling took a step forward and asked coldly. Those people didn't dare to hide anything and told him everything they knew. It turned out that the gold spirits and the water spirits had taken a liking to the demonic forest and invited experts to help. As a reward, those experts would receive the Tree of Tao. Lin Ling came to a realization after listening to them. However, Lin Ling was still very curious about the experts they had invited because he knew that there were 2 of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 states. Moreover, it seemed that they weren't the ones behind this. Tell the gold spirits that this is my territory. Get lost. Lin Ling shouted angrily. Then, he led Yu and the others past them and toward the Wood Spirit tribe. Not long after, the Wood Spirit tribe appeared in front of them. There were tall trees and beautiful flowers. Although this place was still beautiful, it obviously lacked spirituality. Many of the Wood Spirit tribe's members were gathered there and their faces were gloomy. Seeing the Wood Spirit tribe, Lin Ling suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. Lord Messenger. It didn't take long for the members of the Wood Spirit clan to notice Lin Ling, and they couldn't help but be shocked. Where is the Empress? Lin Ling greeted everyone and got straight to the point. The Empress is here. However, Lord Messenger, you have to help us. They want to kill us all. Yes, although a Yuan venerate martial god has appeared to help us, it has only allowed us to escape death. However, we still have to leave our home. Lord Messenger, we don't want to leave our home. Everyone looked at Lin Ling expectantly. Lin Ling had originally intended to meet the Empress. However, after hearing their words, he stopped in his tracks and said, Don't worry, I will protect this place. I will protect this place. It was just a simple sentence, but it filled the Wood Spirits with boundless confidence. Of course, some of the Wood Spirit tribe elders who knew the situation were still worried because they knew who was attacking the demonic forest. Those were the people of the gods. Lord Messenger. At that moment, an exclamation was heard in the sky. A huge leaf slowly drifted down with a few people on it. One of them was the Empress. The Empress was undoubtedly very excited when she saw Lin Ling. However, when she saw Yu and the others, she was immediately shocked. It was no wonder that the Lord Messenger was indifferent to her beauty. It turned out that the people around him were all so beautiful. You will protect this place? That's some big talk, but in my opinion, you're just talking nonsense. There was a young man beside the Empress. At this moment, when he saw how agitated the Empress was, he was undoubtedly displeased and immediately spoke disdainfully. Who do you think you are? Do you know who is attacking the demonic forest? You will be scared to death if I tell you. You are really a frog at the bottom of a well. The young man was the first to drop the leaf as he shouted angrily. However, he had just finished speaking when a shocked voice was heard behind him. You are Lin Ling? A middle-aged man stood beside the Empress. He was a Yuan venerate martial god. At the moment, his eyes were trembling as he looked at Lin Ling as though he had seen a demon. He had also seen Lin Ling at the auction held by Taoist Myriad Treasures and had been scared away by Lin Ling's treasure. Furthermore, Lin Ling had killed 2 martial gods in a row. Thus, he was in awe of Lin Ling from the bottom of his heart. Master, who is Lin Ling? The young man couldn't help but feel puzzled when he saw the Yuan venerate martial god's shocked expression. His master was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo. How could such a person know the young man in blue? That's right. I am Lin Ling. Lin Ling replied as he looked at the Yuan venerate martial god. Ah! The Yuan venerate martial god exclaimed in surprise when he heard Lin Ling's acknowledgement. He actually didn't dare approach Lin Ling. This undoubtedly made the people of the wood spirit race feel incredulous. They naturally knew who a Yuan Venerate martial god was. He was powerful and famous. Even the invaders had to give him some face. Otherwise, the three races of the demonic forest would have been wiped out a long time ago. However, such a powerhouse actually didn't dare approach the Lord Messenger. Chapter 4185. This guy? The Yuan Venerate martial god was stunned when he heard this. Then he flew into a rage. The disciple he had just accepted had actually called Lin Ling this guy? He rushed forward and, under the confused gaze of the young man, suddenly grabbed his neck and smashed him to the ground. Apologize to me. Bang, bang, bang. The Yuan Venerate martial god grabbed the youth and kowtowed to Lin Ling, causing the youth to vomit blood continuously. Lin Ling, this disciple of mine is insensible. I hope you don't take it to heart. The Yuan Venerate martial god then spoke to Lin Ling. Yes, I'm sorry. The youth's face was covered in blood. But he wasn't a fool. As he spoke, he kept spitting out broken teeth. It's fine. I don't have any objections to him. Lin Ling remained indifferent to the Yuan Venerate martial god's actions. He only replied indifferently. His words made the Yuan Venerate martial god relax. He knew that Lin Ling didn't care about his disciple's mistakes. However, I do have some objections to you. However, Lin Ling's next words made the Yuan Venerate martial god's heart skip a beat. The demonic forest is my territory and I'm protecting it. I heard that you were snatching my people, right? Lin Ling played with his fingernails as he spoke casually. I really didn't know about this. The Yuan Venerate martial god's hair stood on end as he explained immediately. In the end, he even gave himself 3 hard slaps. Lin Ling, it's my fault. I didn't know that this was your territory. I didn't recognize you when I tried to snatch people from you. It's my fault. The crisp sound of a slap rang out, causing the wood spirits to be dumbfounded. They had no idea what was going on. However, they weren't fools. They immediately guessed that the status of the Great Envoy was higher than the Yuan Venerate martial god. Great Envoy! The Empress also looked at Lin Ling excitedly. Last time, Lin Ling had saved their devil forest. This time, Lin Ling had come to save the devil forest once again. Lin Ling was worthy of being their envoy. Lin Ling, you also know that my island is very big, but there aren't many people. Right now, these 3 races are about to be killed, so I'm pleading for mercy on their behalf. I want to bring them to my island to increase their popularity. That's all. The Yuan Venerate martial god explained after giving himself 3 slaps. Then his eyes lit up. Furthermore, I also saved them. That's why I'm giving you a chance to speak. Lin Ling nodded. Then he said calmly, tell me, who's having designs on the demon forest? It's a trial taker of a god. The Yuan Venerate martial god said immediately. As expected. Lin Ling's eyes lit up. In fact, he had already guessed that this was the case. After all, the other party had to have a powerful background to be able to summon so many powerhouses. So, how's your discussion going? Lin Ling asked again. The trial taker only wants the Great Path Tree, and this tree is in the Devil Forest. Therefore, after my pleading, they let the 3 races off. However, the 3 races want to leave the Devil Forest. The Yuan Venerate martial god said. What a trial taker. Are you a bandit? Lin Ling's face turned cold. He didn't care what kind of trial taker the other party was. In any case, this was Lin Ling's territory. There was no way they could get their hands on it. The Yuan Venerate martial god heaved a sigh of relief when he heard Lin Ling's domineering voice. It seemed like Lin Ling didn't mind his mistake. Then, he realized that there was finally some way to resolve the matter of the 3 great races. After all, Lin Ling of the heavenly voice of the god was going to make an appearance. This was a god who had seen gods before, a god who possessed supreme authority. However, when I spoke with them last time, they said that they wouldn't show any respect to anyone who came. Then, the Yuan Venerate martial god pondered for a moment before speaking again. His tone was warm and gentle as he tried to sow discord. Lin Ling naturally heard the provocation. However, he didn't mind. Instead, he said nonchalantly, no matter who it is, they will have to show respect to me. Yuan Venerate martial god, I will give you a chance to redeem yourself. Lead the way. Alright. The Yuan Venerate martial god couldn't help but smile excitedly when he heard this. Although he was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo, this was a confrontation between trial takers. He couldn't afford to provoke either side. Unless he didn't fear the gods. Therefore, he could also follow along and watch the confrontation between the trial takers. Follow Sir Envoy. Upon seeing that Lin Ling had made a decision, the people of the wood spirit race also shouted one after another. The Empress was both excited and shocked. She was excited because Sir Envoy had returned. She was shocked because, based on Sir Envoy's tone, he didn't seem to be afraid of those powerhouses. She had never imagined that Lin Ling would actually grow to such a level after being separated from Lin Ling for a few years. This was because she knew very well just how incredible it was to be feared by the 9 states' 10 great martial gods. Moreover, there were such figures among those powerhouses. However, Lin Ling was also such a figure. The large group followed Lin Ling and advanced through the dense forest. Inform the fire spirit race and the earth spirit race. Along the way, the Empress also spoke to the people of her race. Those people understood and ran happily through the forest. After a long time, the people of the fire spirit race and the earth spirit race arrived. Without any suspense, they were extremely excited. Sir Totem. The patriarch of the fire spirit race knelt down immediately. Whine, whine, whine. The dwarves of the earth spirit race also knelt down. However, this group of dwarves also looked at Lin Ling anxiously. Lin Ling immediately scolded them jokingly and threw away the wine on his body. Over the years, he had already developed a habit of collecting fine wine from all over as long as he had the chance. He had never imagined that it would come in handy today. When the Yuan Venerate martial god saw that the 3 great races were very familiar with Lin Ling, he immediately knew that it was impossible for him to recruit the 3 great races. Continue leading the way. Lin Ling didn't stay here for too long. He let the Yuan Venerate martial god continue leading the way. Lin Ling was also very curious as to which trial taker had interfered in his territory. As they passed through the mountains, they finally saw a large luxurious mansion located in the distance when they were close to the ancient Yuan mountain range. It was obvious that these mansions had been built not long ago. However, they had everything they needed. They were magnificent and majestic. Furthermore, the martialists strolling around nearby were all martial gods. They were obviously extremely famous people in Jojo. Based on their obedient appearance, this also indicated the trial taker's identity. If the 4 great gods were compared to emperors, then the trial taker would be the chief general. Of course, he had to be at the level of the divine heavenly voice. Ordinary trial takers still weren't valued. After all, the divine heavenly voice was something that could allow one to meet the gods. Lin Ling, we have arrived. I will go and talk to them. After all, I just saw the trial taker 3 days ago. I reckon he is still here. Chapter 4186. Their disdainful smiles deepened when they saw the Yuan Venerate martial god. This Yuan Venerate martial god was pleading for mercy? He was simply overestimating himself. May I ask if Sir Black Flag is here? The Yuan Venerate martial god asked with cupped fists. He was also a little depressed. He was one of the 10 great martial gods of Jojo, a powerhouse with high standards. Now, he had to lower his voice before these weak martialists. This was too depressing. Yuan Venerate martial god, Sir Black Flag has already given you a lot of face. Now, you still want to plead for mercy? Let me give you a word of advice. Scram. An old man with a goatee said nonchalantly. His attitude was extremely arrogant. The Yuan Venerate martial god cursed silently when he saw this. Spiritual Master Goat, I do have an important matter to discuss with him. I already said scram. The old man called Spiritual Master Goat snorted. You should know that Sir Black Flag has already given you a lot of face. If you continue to pester him, Sir Black Flag's promise to you might fall through. Boom. However, as soon as he said this, a fist flew over from afar at an extremely fast speed. Bang! When it landed on the old man's head, it exploded like a watermelon. The entire process was straightforward and simple. This unforeseen event immediately made the powerhouses in front of the mansion feel as if they were facing a great enemy. The Yuan Venerate martial god was flabbergasted and in disbelief. After all, the person standing in front of him was Lin Ling. What's the point of wasting time with them? Lin Ling shook off the blood on his hand as he spoke coldly to the Yuan Venerate Martial God. His words made the Yuan Venerate Martial God's jaw drop. He was shocked by Lin Ling's domineering attitude. However, a carefree feeling arose spontaneously soon after. He had also lowered his voice for a long time. Damn it, this was the first time he felt so refreshed. Then. What should we do next? The Yuan Venerate Martial God asked nervously. Are you an idiot? Lin Ling glanced at the Yuan Venerate Martial God strangely. We are here to look for someone, not to reminisce about the past, nor to plead for mercy. If anyone dares to talk nonsense, just beat them up. This sentence made the Yuan Venerate Martial God wake up from a dream. That's right. He followed Lin Ling. Why did he have to plead for mercy like a dog? At once, he straightened, his back stiffened and roared thunderously. Sir, come out here. The Yuan Venerate Martial God's attitude was insufferably arrogant, as if he was venting all his frustrations over the past few days. Yuan Venerate Martial God, you. These powerhouses were furious. How could Yuan Venerates and Martial Gods of the past be so arrogant? Whoosh! The Yuan Venerate Martial God did not waste any more words. He lunged forward and his arm turned into a rock. He grabbed a powerhouse and smashed him into the ground. Boom! After smashing down, a black rock appeared out of thin air and suppressed the expert, causing him to vomit blood more than 10 meters away. Actually, the strongest martialist present was a Yuan Venerate Martial God. Even Lin Ling couldn't compare to him. It was just that Lin Ling's status was higher. After suppressing that powerhouse, the Yuan Venerate Martial God was elated as he glared angrily at everyone. With a martial god backing him, he could do things without the slightest scruple. Great. Upon seeing the Yuan Venerate Martial God's insufferably arrogant attitude, the powerhouses didn't dare be arrogant anymore. Who are you? At this moment, a figure walked out of the mansion's door. This person looked very young, about 30 years old, but his strength was not weak. He was Martial God Ripple Illusion, one of the 10 new martial gods in JoJo. He immediately squinted at the Yuan Venerate Martial God when he walked out. He didn't understand why the latter was so bold. Damn you! Ask Sir Black Flag to come out here. However, the Yuan Venerate Martial God clearly wasn't afraid of him this time. Haha! Is Sir Black Flag someone you can meet whenever you want? I'll give you a chance. Get lost immediately. Martial God Ripple Illusion sneered. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Lin Ling's voice was heard. Yuan Venerate Martial God. Can you capture him? Yes. The Yuan Venerate Martial God nodded instinctively and turned to look at Lin Ling. When he saw Lin Ling nod, he immediately understood and erupted with his full power. The ferocious speed, the unparalleled power of divinity, and the divine embryo all surged forward in a mighty wave. Boom! When this aura was unleashed, the mansion behind was the first to explode and turn into dust. The strength of a Yuan Venerate Martial God was terrifying. The surrounding martialists were also blown away by this violent storm. Martial God Ripple Illusion had clearly not expected that a Yuan Venerate Martial God would dare to attack him. This was rebellion. Could a Yuan Venerate Martial God dare to go against a martial god? Unfortunately, although he was also one of the 10 great martial gods in JoJo, he was still a new martial god and his strength couldn't compare to a Yuan Venerate Martial God. Furthermore, the Yuan Venerate Martial God had attacked suddenly. This could be considered a sneak attack. Thus, in a short moment, he was sealed by the mysterious stone and turned into a 2-meter-tall divine stone. Only his head was exposed. He resisted with all his might, but it was useless. At the same time, Lin Ling's eyes lit up. The strength of a Yuan Venerate Martial God was indeed terrifying. He had a feeling that even if he used all his strength, he might not be a match for a Yuan Venerate Martial God unless he used a treasure to suppress him. However, he had never imagined that a Yuan Venerate Martial God would be so cowardly despite being so strong. He would actually be so afraid of him and the other trial takers. However, Lin Ling quickly recalled that this Yuan Venerate Martial God had also been like this back at the Guyuan mountain range. This was a well-prepared powerhouse who had endured humiliation all his life. Thus, there was more or less some cowardice in the depths of his character. Swoosh! Lin Ling rushed forward and arrived before the divine stone. Following which, he viciously threw 3 slaps at it. You dare to act so arrogantly in my territory? Slap, slap, slap. Martial God Ripple Illusion had been restrained by the Yuan Venerate Martial God and could only endure Lin Ling's 3 palm strikes. And he was also beaten silly. You. Who are you? You must have a death wish. Martial God Ripple Illusion roared furiously. He had never imagined that he, one of the 10 great martial gods of the 9 states, would actually be slapped in the face. You are indeed one of the 10 great martial gods of the 9 states. You are very strong. Even your skin is thicker than others. Lin Ling ignored his words. Instead, he waved his numb palm and took out his scabbard. Then, he swung it at Martial God Ripple Illusion's face as though he was holding the leg of a chair. Bang! A dull sound was heard. Martial God Ripple Illusion's nose was smashed crooked and he spat out a mouthful of blood. This scared the surrounding martial gods so much that they started trembling. Who exactly was this person? He was simply too arrogant. Furthermore, this was because Lin Ling had used the scabbard. If he had used the Tyrant Song Sword, the restrained martial god Ripple Illusion might have been killed immediately. Trial taker Lin Ling. What is the meaning of this? A figure finally leaped out of the crumbling mansion and appeared before Lin Ling's eyes. This person's strength was also unfathomable. However, there was also a sword-like sea urchin radiating from his body. This was a divine might. Chapter 4187. Trial Challenger Lin Ling. Martial God Huan Bo's eyes narrowed at Huang Xiaolong's words. Everyone else's jaws dropped to the floor. So this frivolous and unruly young man was a trial challenger. No wonder he was so unbridled. Who are you? Lin Ling slowly sheathed his tyrannical song sword and asked nonchalantly when he saw the newcomer. Lin Ling had never seen this young man before, nor did he expect the other party to recognize him. I'm Yojian's 4-star trial challenger, Wangu Yanhui. The young man puffed out his chest proudly and said nonchalantly, Lin Ling, why did you disrupt my trial mission? You should know that disrupting other people's trial mission is equivalent to provoking a god. Trial mission? Lin Ling was inwardly surprised, then sneered. What trial mission is this? Looking for the world will in the Kai Yuan River. Wangu Yanhui immediately answered. The world will in the Kai Yuan River? Lin Ling naturally knew where it was. It was at the Dragon Clan's side. He had once communicated with that world will. The world will was on the other side of the Kai Yuan River. But this Wangu Yanhui's gaze was on the Devil Forest. Obviously, he was using the trial mission as an excuse to run amok. Bullshit. Thinking of this, Lin Ling snapped angrily. First, who said others can't interfere with the trial mission? Did you say that? Or did Eugene say that? This was the truth. Other trial challengers were not prohibited from participating in the trial mission. In fact, there were times when trial challengers would fight to the death just for a single mission. When Lin Ling went to the Spirit Light City as a scout, he was doing the same mission with Longyang and the others. Therefore, there was no such thing as not interfering. Second, this is my territory. You're behaving atrociously in my territory. Do you think I can just stand by and watch? Lin Ling repeated. Wangu Yanhui gritted his teeth, knowing that Lin Ling was right. Indeed, senior apprentice Sister Lu Li had said that Lin Ling was very difficult to deal with. Seeing it today, it was indeed so. It was obvious that he and Lu Li Empress were both gods. All right, you're right. However, are you really going to go against me for the sake of the demonic forest? Wangu Yanhui spoke again. Go against you? You think too highly of yourself. Let me tell you, this devil forest is under the protection of I. Lin Ling. Whoever dares to mess around here will be going against me. Lin Ling. Lin Ling stepped forward with an overbearing aura. Huang Xiaolong could tell that although Wangu Yanhui was a trial challenger, Wangu Yanhui's strength was lower than his. All right, I will report this matter to Lei Gong and let him convict you. This is because you actually provoked other trial takers for no reason. Watching Lin Ling's momentum climbing higher and higher, Wangu Yanhui's anger soared once again. However, he didn't dare to make a move. If he did, it would be equivalent to provoking the lightning god Great Hall. Hee, you're talking big. May I ask, what star-level trial challenger are you now? Listening to Wangu Yanhui's words, Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and immediately mocked. Didn't you say you're a 4-star cultivator? A guy who hasn't even seen a god realm cultivator. You can see Lei Gong? You must be dreaming. Lin Ling's last sentence left Wangu Yanhui speechless. Wangu Yanhui's body trembled uncontrollably because Lin Ling was also mocking him, Wangu Yanhui, as trash. Yo, Lin Ling! Why are you bullying some newcomers? But at this time, two figures slowly approached from the distant sky. Judging from the direction they were coming from, they seemed to be coming from the ancient Origin Mountains. Looking closer, they had a divine might similar to a sea urchin. Clearly, they were also trial challengers. No one had expected that 4 trial challengers would gather in the demonic Origin Forest today. Lin Ling also looked up and immediately discovered that one of them was wearing a long black robe. Even his shoes were black. It was extremely strange. However, this person was very strong and wasn't much weaker than a Yuan Venerate martial god. Come to think of it, this person should be the black flag that the Yuan Venerate martial god had mentioned. Furthermore, he was also the person with the greatest authority here. The other person was someone Lin Ling was familiar with. It was Lei Gong's trial challenger, Zhong Shan. When Lin Ling had gone to Lei Gong's hall and walked up the sea god's stairway, it had been Zhong Shan who had led the way and introduced the rules of Lei Gong's hall. To Lin Ling, Zhong Shan was a good friend. However, Zhong Shan's appearance here undoubtedly surprised Lin Ling. Of course, Zhong Shan was also very surprised as he exclaimed, "Lin Ling, what are you doing here?" As these words faded, Xueqi turned his head to look at Zhong Shan in astonishment. Clearly, he did not expect Zhong Shan to know Lin Ling. Although there were only 40 trial challengers below the 4 great gods, this didn't mean that everyone knew each other. Big Brother Black Flag, this person is disrespectful to me. Wangu Yanhui immediately spoke up when he saw Black Flag arrive. Clearly, Black Flag's status and strength were above Wangu Yanhui's. Black Flag squinted at Lin Ling. He naturally knew about Lin Ling's name. This was someone who had embarrassed senior sister Lioli. He had heard of such a person before. However, after meeting him today, he realized that Lin Ling didn't live up to his reputation. He was as domineering as the rumors said. Lin Ling, this is our business. What's the meaning of this? Black Flag said nonchalantly. Then he glanced at his residence, which had been reduced to dust, and added, "You destroyed our residence. Aren't you being too arrogant by doing this?" This fellow lacks manners, so I decided to teach him a lesson. However, Lin Ling wasn't afraid at all as he spoke nonchalantly with his hands behind his back. His frivolous attitude made the Yuan Venerate martial god admire him. Lin Ling wasn't strong, but his guts were ferocious. Previously, he had been afraid that Lin Ling would weaken when he saw Black Flag. If that had happened, even though Black Flag wouldn't have done anything to Lin Ling, the Yuan Venerate martial god would have been unlucky and would have made things difficult for him in the future. Fortunately, Lin Ling was still as arrogant as before. At the very least, Black Flag wouldn't look at the Yuan Venerate martial god anymore. Even if someone needs to be taught a lesson, it should be our god. What right do you have? Black Flag had never imagined that Lin Ling would be so arrogant and not give him any face at all. Right. Upon hearing this, Lin Ling smirked. I am a heavenly voice of God, while he is a 4-star trial taker that even the gods have never seen before. Is this considered a right? It is. Black Flag nodded. Does this mean that I would also have the right to teach you a lesson if my level was higher than yours? Black Flag was clearly a heavenly voice of God. He was a powerhouse that had seen Eugene before. All right, then may I ask what star trial taker you are? Lin Ling nodded immediately. Sorry, I'm a 7-star. Black Flag didn't hide anything as he replied nonchalantly. He also wanted to see Lin Ling's terrified expression after he said this. After all, a 7-star trial taker was an extremely noble status. Being able to reach this level meant that he had completed many missions and was valued by the gods. Chapter 4188. I'm sorry, but I'm also a 7-star. Looking at Xueqi's smug expression, Lin Ling said word by word. What? As soon as he said that, the 3 trial takers' eyes narrowed. Lin Ling was the trial taker with the fastest growth rate among the 4 gods. At such a young age, he already had the heavenly voice of God. They had long been envious of him. But now, Lin Ling had become a 7-star trial taker? If that was the case, it would be impossible for Xueqi to show his status in front of Lin Ling. Xueqi couldn't help but turn to look at Zhong Shan. He wanted to know from Zhongshan whether Linling was bragging. However, Zhongshan was also confused. He remembered that Linling was only a 6-star trial taker before he left. Therefore, Zhongshan frowned and asked, Linling, are you sure you're a 7-star trial taker? Could it be that someone dares to make a joke about a god? Linling asked. His words made the 3 trial takers fall silent. Indeed, no matter how arrogant a trial taker was, he wouldn't dare to make a joke about a god. Since Linling dared to say that, he must be really confident. I'll give you a chance. Scram. Seeing that they were silent, Linling also ordered them to leave. Linling, why do you have to do this? We're all trial takers. Why don't we each take a step back? There's no need to offend Xueqi and the others. Scram. At this moment, Zhongshan frowned and said, How about giving me face? Scram. Brother Zhongshan, I'm giving you face. That's why I'm being so nice. Linling looked at Zhongshan indifferently and said, You should know that this demonic forest is my territory. If a trial taker dares to run amok in my territory, do you think I can stand by and do nothing? Therefore, he's the one offending me now, not the other way around. Scram. Hearing this, Zhongshan was enraged. This was because Xueqi and Wangu Yanhui were both looking at him, and Linling had met the gods later than him. Therefore, if he couldn't even deal with Linling, he wouldn't be able to swallow his pride. With this thought in mind, Zhongshan's voice also became solemn. Linling, no matter what, I am the one who brought you to Lei Gong's Great Hall. You must give me this face no matter what. He remembered that Linling was very easy to talk to in the Lei Gong Hall, so his dignified appearance should be able to scare Linling. However, he didn't know that Linling was easy to talk to, but that depended on the time. At this moment, Linling didn't give anyone face because this had already violated Linling's principles. Moreover, if he, Zhongshan, walked around the 9 prefectures in the final world and asked for Linling's name, everyone would say that this Linling wasn't easy to talk to. Brother Zhongshan, you brought me to Lei Gong's Great Hall last time, so I will give you face. At this moment, Linling looked indifferently at Zhongshan and said. These words made Zhongshan smile with satisfaction, but Linling wasn't done yet. I will give you face, so I will call you Brother Zhongshan for the rest of my life. If you still want to go against me, then don't blame me for not being polite to you. With the last sentence, Linling's voice was so cold that it penetrated one's heart. You dare. Hearing this, Zhongshan was furious. How dare a latecomer be so arrogant? Although Lei Gong valued Linling a little, in Zhongshan's opinion, Linling was just lucky to be chosen by Lei Gong. Sooner or later, he would return to his original state. In the past, Zhongshan was polite to Linling on the surface, but in fact, he was already dissatisfied with Linling. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the time when Linling left the Lei Gong's Great Hall to plot against Linling. However, Linling always disappeared too quickly, causing his plan to fail. It seems like Zhongshan, you are bent on going against me. Linling was also angry. Of course, he would give face to Zhongshan. However, Zhongshan didn't know how to conduct himself. He, Linling, had already made it clear that the demon forest was under his protection. If Zhongshan wanted to give face to him, he should have advised Xueqi, not him, Linling. It was as if Zhongshan didn't help his own people when they were being bullied at home. Instead, he bullied his own family. Let me tell you, if you don't scram after the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, don't blame me for taking action. Linling issued his final order. Xueqi and the others' faces turned cold. This Linling was too arrogant. He didn't give them any face at all. However, when they thought of Linling's identity, they didn't dare to act recklessly. After all, angering Linling wasn't a big deal, but angering Lei Gong would be troublesome. You have guts. Mountains and rivers will meet again. Don't fall into my hands. Xueqi stared at Linling and said word by word. Obviously, he had no choice but to retreat now. Wait. But at this time, Wangu Yanhui shouted. He looked at Linling and said, Linling, this matter is between you and me. Why don't we settle it, using the simplest method of a cultivator to fight? If you win, this devil essence forest will belong to you, and we will never step into it again. If I win, the demon forest will belong to me. What do you think? Of course, you can also choose not to fight. However, if the dignified Tianyin of the seven-star god is afraid of a newcomer, your reputation will be tarnished. Of course you Linling might not care, but Lei Gong's side won't be able to say anything. In the mission, there must be something fishy going on. That's why you Linling soared to the heavens in one step and became a seven-star god. Wangu Yanhui's voice was filled with provocation. Hearing Wangu Yanhui's words, Xueqi and Zhongshan sneered. Linling was a seven-star cultivator, but in fact, they still doubted the authenticity of that claim. If Linling didn't even dare to battle Wangu Yanhui, then the two-word seven-star would be an undeserved reputation. Do you dare or not? Wangu Yanhui's aura became overbearing when he saw Linling's silence. Seeing this, a cold light flickered in Linling's eyes. These people had turned the demon forest upside down, yet he, Linling, only asked them to scram. This was already giving them enough face. However, this Wangu Yanhui was still unwilling to give up. Did he really think that he, Linling, was an easy target to bully? As you wish. At this point, it was impossible for Linling to refuse. Straightforward. Wangu Yanhui was not surprised by Linling's nod. After all, he guessed that it was fine for Linling to lose face, but he did not dare to make Lei Gong lose face as well. Let's go over there. Wangu Yanhui took the lead, flying towards the ancient Yuan mountain range's sky. Xueqi and Zhongshan also sneered coldly and flew away. Zhongshan, how is this Linling's strength? His talent is not bad, he has 2 divine embryos, but his cultivation realm is not high, and his divine force is not strong. He might be powerful against other martial god realm masters, but against us who are also martial god realm cultivators, his strength is weaker. I estimate that the gap between Wangu Yanhui and Linling's strength is not too big. Wangu Yanhui is only a little bit stronger. After all, according to the time, they should be the same batch of cultivators. It's just that Linling's luck was good, and he did some mission that caused his cultivation to soar. Chapter 4189. After all, every person who could become a trial taker was an extremely powerful entity. For example, although Wangu Yanhui wasn't the strongest among the trial takers, he was still considered a mid-tier existence. So far, he had only lost to one person. While Xueqi and the others were talking, the people from the 3 races and the Yuan venerates and martial gods were also heading towards the Guyuan mountain range. However, they were still a little worried about this battle. Even the Yuan venerates and martial gods weren't sure if Linling could win, unless Linling used his god-destroying trump cards. However, if that happened, Linling would have an unfair advantage. This should be Big Brother Ling's first battle with a trial taker after becoming a trial taker, right? Linling will definitely win. Even Yu and the others weren't completely confident. Unfortunately, they didn't know that Linling had already fought a trial taker in Spirit Light City. His opponent was Han Xie, who was also a rather famous existence among the trial takers. Unknowingly, more and more people had gathered in the sky above the Guyuan mountain range. The powerhouses of the metal spirit race and the water spirit race were lingering in the distance. Furthermore, they had all recognized Linling. Back then, Linling had killed the high priest and princess of the metal spirit race. Therefore, they hoped that Linling would be defeated. Of course, they hadn't expected that the enemy of their 2 races, Linling, would also be a trial taker. Furthermore, it seemed like his status wasn't low. Linling, I heard that you have 2 divine embryos. Today, I'll be able to exchange some pointers with you. I'm especially curious about your human monarch flame. After a moment, the 2 of them floated in the sky. Wangu Yanhui also said, because I also have a fire divine embryo. I hope you can make me use this divine embryo. I also hope you can make me use my human monarch flame. Linling said indifferently with his hands clasped behind his back. You're stubborn, but let me tell you this. Among the trial takers, I've defeated a few, but I've only suffered 1 defeat so far. And that person was the 7-star trial taker Han Xie. Only an old man with such qualifications can defeat me. As for you? I'm sorry. It's not that I'm looking down on you. You're a 7-star trial taker, but in my opinion, you're just someone who doesn't have the qualifications. Wangu Yanhui nodded his head. Suddenly, a large number of red light dots appeared around his body, condensing and covering his entire body. Alright, I heard that you're a newbie, so I shouldn't talk about Han Xier in front of you. With your knowledge, I'm afraid you've never heard of him. In the end, Wangu Yanhui's body was covered by a layer of crystalline crystal. This crystalline crystal was neither jade nor gold, and it looked like a layer of armor. On the surface of this armor were tiger stripes, and there were 3 tiger stripes on Wangu Yanhui's cheeks. The aura of a ferocious beast burst out. This aura carried with it a unique characteristic, and that was chaos. One of the 4 great vicious beasts of the universe, Xueqi. In the distance, Black Flag stared at Wangu Yanhui's transformation with a faint smile on his face. He knew that Wangu Yanhui possessed the true Xueqi physique. His strength was boundless, and he was the representative of the world's most monstrous vicious beasts. A light flickered in Lin Ling's eyes. He possessed one of the 4 great vicious beasts, Chaos Beast, so he naturally sensed Wangu Yanhui's ferocious aura. However, unlike Chaos Beast, Wangu Yanhui's ferocious aura was more chaotic, as if he wanted to see the world in chaos. However, Lin Ling had to admit that Wangu Yanhui's Xueqi physique was slightly stronger than his Chaos Beast physique. At the same time, Wangu Yanhui opened his eyes. His pupils were crimson, looking extremely demonic. He spoke softly, "My Xueqi divine fetus physique is the 8th strongest physique in the gods' era. Now, I'll let you have a taste of my power." He stretched out a red claw and clenched it, causing the void to explode. That was 200,000 worlds worth of world force. No wonder he could become a cultivator. His physical strength was stronger than Lin Ling's. Wangu Yanhui was also an expert that Lin Ling had fought so far. His physical strength was stronger than Wang Xue's 8-9 devil art. From another perspective, Wangu Yanhui's strength was comparable to the leader of the 9 prefectures' 10 vicious. After all, although Wang Xue's strength was comparable, there was still a gap between them. Wangu Yanhui, on the other hand, did not lack this gap. Interesting. Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile. He no longer concealed his strength. Talent fusion. 6 divine embryos erupted at the same time. Lin Ling's entire person became majestic. Dragon claws, jellyfish tentacles, chaos beast, human king's flame, and lightning lock physique were all displayed. This aura is also very strong. Noticing Lin Ling's transformation, Black Flag and Zhong Shan frowned slightly. But at this time, Wangu Yanhui had already made his move. A red light flickered, splitting the sky. In the next moment, a giant claw with ferocious power slammed down on Lin Ling. 200,000 worlds worth of world force exploded. Boom! At the same time, Lin Ling also swung his dragon claws. Like 2 fierce beasts colliding, both figures were sent flying back. How is this possible? Wangu Yanhui had just stopped moving when he exclaimed in shock. The arm that he had swung out earlier felt numb. In this first clash, he actually did not gain any advantage. His body of Xueqi had been nurtured by the fearsome sea, cleansed by the chaotic qi of the emperors of the realms, and refined by countless treasures. Only then had he reached the innate divine fetus realm and was very close to becoming a grade 2 divine fetus. Moreover, his cultivation level was at the advanced stage of the martial god realm, which was higher than Lin Ling's. Higher, but still unable to suppress the other party? Although Lin Ling had many talents and had the ability to fuse them together, in Wangu Yanhui's eyes, he was just an assortment of miscellaneous talents. No matter how many talents he had, they could not compare to a single talent specialization. At this time, Lin Ling also made his move. Displaying the speed of 15,000 worlds, Huang Xiaolong appeared in front of Wangu Yanhui in the blink of an eye. His dragon claws clenched into a fist and punched out. Although Lin Ling only had 15 worlds worth of world force, Lin Ling had already fused his 6 stanchions. Adding the power of his 6 divine embryos, it naturally made up for the difference of 50,000 worlds. In fact, Huang Xiaolong was even stronger. Dazzling divine light shone, as if his radiance would shine for eternity. The 2 experts exchanged more than a dozen moves. Looking at their figures, it was as if 2 gods were clashing, causing the earth to erupt in cheers. So fierce, Zhong Shan, this Lin Ling's strength is stronger than expected. That's not possible. The last time he climbed the ascending god staircase, he barely managed to defeat the 36 city lords. With his current strength, I'm afraid he is invincible among the 36 city lords. Last time? How long was that? Don't tell me it was 100 years ago. In 100 years. His strength should have increased a long time ago. Less than 5 years. What? After exchanging a few words, even Xueqi was shocked. Reaching this level of strength in less than 5 years, this Linling was too monstrous. Chapter 4190. Rumble, rumble, rumble. While they were conversing, Linling and Wangu Yanhui had already exchanged more than 100 moves. It was as if the entire ancient Yuan mountain range had been destroyed by them. Linling's strength shocked the 5 great clans. Of course, even Yu and the rest were shocked, unable to understand where Linling had gone, and how did his strength increase so much. Of course, they didn't know that Linling had gone to the Spirit Light City, where he had undergone a complete transformation. As for Wangu Yanhui, the more he fought, the more shocked he became. From the beginning, Linling had been evenly matched, but now, Linling was slowly suppressing him. Linling, I have underestimated you, but you should be using your full strength, while I have not. After being sent flying by Linling's punch, Wangu Yanhui let out a roar and opened his mouth to spit out a red sword. It floated in front of Wangu Yanhui as if it had a spirit of its own, lightly nodding its head at Wangu Yanhui. The moment this red sword appeared, Wangu Yanhui's expression turned arrogant. He looked at Linling, waiting to see what Linling had to say. However, not only did Linling remain calm, he even crossed his arms over his chest, looking at Wangu Yanhui with indifference. The meaning behind his gaze was clear. Show me what you've got, I, Linling, will be waiting. Arrogant. With just a glance, Wangu Yanhui's lungs nearly exploded from anger. He had thought that once the red sword appeared, Linling would take it seriously. Spring wanes, the west wind fades, pouring the Big Dipper, filling it with the autumn wind, the slanting wind drizzles, the rain is sparse, the wind is sudden, the night rain is bleak. Wangu Yanhui's cold voice sounded, and the red sword floating in front of him emitted a dazzling light. It shot out, and actually split into a large number of red swords. These red swords formed a trumpet-like sword array, and all the swords were aimed at Linling, emitting a dazzling sword light. Then, they enveloped Linling and flew towards him. From afar, the scene was spectacular. 7 divine swords. Xueqi mumbled to himself. He knew that it was a grade 6 innate divine weapon. It was capable of unleashing a tremendous amount of divine energy. There were a total of 50 divine energy. Rumble. Countless red swords shot towards Linling like waves. The red sword light seemed to illuminate the entire ancient Yuan mountain range. And within the waves of swords, Linling's eyes flashed. He immediately realized how extraordinary this sword was. Red sword, red sword. This was Linling's first time seeing a sword of this color. Furthermore, when the red light enveloped him, Linling discovered that his speed, defense, and attack were all suppressed by 10%. A very good sword. Come out. Linling smiled and shouted heroically. Whoosh. From the sword gate behind him, the tyrannical song sword drew a beautiful trajectory and landed on Linling's body. Billowing killing intent and demonic chi filled the air. Together with Linling's divine embryo aura, it made Linling look like a sword demon from the era of gods. How majestic! The 5 clans on the ground looked at Linling. They realized that Linling's long hair was dancing in the wind, and there were countless tentacles waving behind him. In addition to that, he had a mighty sword. He was truly a godlike existence. Bang! The void exploded as Linling pounced forward with the sword in his hand. The sword was brilliant, and it was as if it was slashing in all directions. Linling's sword could be both soft and hard. When it was soft it was like a swift sword, and when it was hard it was like a door plank. Right now it was in the form of hard. Clang, clang, clang. The collision of swords was extremely ear-piercing. It was even more dazzling. The 5 races were so dazzled by the dazzling sword battle that they could not see the sky clearly. It took them a long time to get used to it. However, after they got used to it, they saw that Linling had already exchanged countless moves with the countless red swords in the sky. Sword moves that seemed simple yet contained endless mysteries were clearly displayed before everyone's eyes. Originally, Wangu Yanhui had been attacking, while Linling had been defending. However, gradually, Linling began to take the initiative to attack. This was because the sword in his hand was too ferocious. When he swung it, those red swords were also swept away by a gust of wind. In the end, the entire sky had disappeared. Only endless sword lights were flickering, as dazzling as lightning. How terrifying! The people on the ground also exclaimed. These two people were not only powerful trial takers, but they were also two exceptional swordsmen. Lin Ling's sword is also so powerful. The Yuan venerate martial god knew that Lin Ling's treasures were powerful, but he had never imagined that Lin Ling's swordsmanship would also be so terrifying. Time passed quietly. In the end, the two figures in the sky had already disappeared. Only endless sword lights were left. However, from time to time, thunderous sounds could be heard. Those were the ear-piercing sounds formed by the collision of swords. Once this sword is unleashed, heaven and earth will end. An old man from the gold spirit race muttered to himself. He was also holding a golden sword in his hand. However, the sword was trembling and emitting a sword cry at the moment. At the same time, a sharp sword aura emanated from his body all of a sudden. He had broken through. He had actually broken through. This old man was obviously also an expert swordsman. Thus, when he watched the clash of swords between Lin Ling and Yuan venerate martial god, he had actually comprehended something and his understanding of the sword had greatly improved. The people from the gold spirit race were also shocked. Then they all stared at the sky. They immediately knew that the clash of swords between the two trial takers was actually sprinkling the great Tao of the sword. Clang! At that moment, an unprecedentedly crisp sound was heard. The red swords in the sky had been swept away and cracks had appeared on one of them. How can Lin Ling be so strong? Black Flag instantly realized something. After all, he saw that Wangu Yanhui couldn't suppress Lin Ling at all. Instead, Lin Ling was suppressing him. Flame Mark. Right at this time, fiery runes appeared around Huang Xiaolong as Buddha flames descended. These Buddha flames were akin to the divine light behind a Buddha god, and the one who released this divine light was Wangu Yanhui. When it bloomed continuously, it caused everything to calm down. Furthermore, the Buddhist flames that bloomed were so large that they enveloped the entire ancient Yuan mountain range. In the sky, Lin Ling smiled slightly. He knew that Wangu Yanhui had unleashed another trump card after seeing that his red sword couldn't suppress him. This was normal because Wangu Yanhui's red sword had 50 strands of god force. However, Lin Ling's tyrannical song sword had produced 100 strands of god force. Therefore, Lin Ling was merely playing around with Wangu Yanhui. Otherwise, if they were serious, Lin Ling was confident that he could break all of Wangu Yanhui's swords. However, Wangu Yanhui was worthy of being a trial taker. He had many tricks up his sleeves, and all of them were extremely powerful. If Lin Ling hadn't gone to the Spirit Light City and obtained the broken sword, Lin Ling admitted that he wouldn't be Wangu Yanhui's opponent. But now, Wangu Yanhui was at the end of his rope. Flame Mark. Lin Ling noticed that the rings of Buddhist flames were innate divine embryos. However, when it came to playing with fire, among Lin Ling's many divine embryos, he had the deepest understanding of fire. Moreover, he had obtained the god fragment's essence from the god's inheritance treasure. Therefore, when it came to playing with fire, Lin Ling feared no one. In fact, he wanted to completely suppress Wangu Yanhui. Boom boom boom. Chapter 4191. Everyone was looking at Wangu Yanhui in the sky. After 2 hours of battle, Wangu Yanhui's hair was disheveled, and his face was covered in blood. He cut a sorry figure. In these 2 hours, Lin Ling had been beating Wangu Yanhui up. At this point, no one thought that Wangu Yanhui was Lin Ling's opponent anymore. Of course, this reality was hard to believe. Wangu Yanhui was the same batch as Lin Ling. No, Wangu Yanhui had become a trial challenger earlier than Lin Ling. It was just that Lin Ling's speed was too fast, which led to Lin Ling's higher status. Because of this, many people thought that Lin Ling was among the trial challengers. His strength was not strong. But now Lin Ling had proven everything. Wangu Yanhui had only lost to one person in his life, and that was Han Xie. Now, there was another Lin Ling. Go die! Right at this time, Wangu Yanhui let out an angry roar, and a crystal head appeared in his palm. This crystal head was extremely mysterious, exuding a gentle light, but there was also a hint of evilness in this light. When this light shone, even Hei Qi and the others felt a pressure pressing down on them. It was obvious that the crystal head was a rare treasure that came from the gods' era. Wangu Yanhui had only used it now. This meant that this was Wangu Yanhui's trump card. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled and pounced forward. At this moment, the Tyrant Song Sword's god force erupted. Kacha! With a single slash, Wangu Yanhui's arm was severed, and the crystal head fell to the ground. However, the crystal head was very strange. After it fell to the ground, it disappeared without a trace, as if it had a spirit of its own. Ah! Wangu Yanhui let out a blood-curdling scream. His anger was on the verge of exploding. He had just taken out his trump card, but it was interrupted by Lin Ling before he could use it. Lin Ling had definitely concealed his true strength during the previous battle. Admit defeat. Such a scene finally caused Black Flag to shake his head helplessly. At this time Lin Ling, who had already appeared in front of Wangu Yanhui, clenched his left hand into a fist and punched out mercilessly. The first palm strike was red Bodhi, and the second palm strike was yellow Bodhi. When the third palm strike appeared, the blue Bodhi appeared and landed on Wangu Yanhui's chest. A terrifying Bodhi power erupted from Wangu Yanhui's body. A blue dragon rushed out from Wangu Yanhui's back, sweeping across the sky and sprinkling rain onto the ground. Lon Bodhi's Sin Sea Dragon King. Divine Dragon Claws slay demons. Ah! Wangu Yanhui let out another blood-curdling scream. Lin Ling was expressionless. I'm giving this to you on behalf of the demon primordial forest. Boom! A golden flame appeared in his left hand. Holding the golden flame, Lin Ling ruthlessly slammed it into Wangu Yanhui's chest. The flame of the human sovereign. Great heavenly flame. I'm giving this to you on behalf of the three races. Boom! The golden flame landed on Wangu Yanhui's body, causing his body to tremble. In the next second, his body was burned beyond recognition. His flame runes were no match for the human sovereign's flame. Crackle! At this time, white lightning erupted from Lin Ling's body, ferocious beyond compare. These lightning bolts swam towards Lin Ling's arm like a tidal wave. Lightning luster physique. Lin Ling, enough. At the same time, Black Flag's cold voice sounded from the sky. Lin Ling had already won, but Lin Ling was still unwilling to let Wangu Yanhui off the hook. He said coldly, "Do you know the consequences of your actions?" Lin Ling's actions were equivalent to provoking the participants for no reason. If Eugene found out about this, Lin Ling would definitely suffer. Therefore, when Black Flag's words fell, Zhongshan and the others narrowed their eyes, thinking that Lin Ling would stop before going too far. I'm sorry, I really don't know what the consequences are. However, Lin Ling did not even spare Black Flag a glance. His palm was mixed with lightning bolts, and it landed heavily on Wangu Yanhui's body. The ferocious power wreaked havoc on Wangu Yanhui's body, causing him to spit out white bubbles from his mouth. I'm sorry, I really don't know what the consequences are. The crowd was also pondering over Lin Ling's words. Lin Ling was too arrogant. Although his cultivation level was higher than Wangu Yanhui's, he did not have the qualifications to abuse Wangu Yanhui like this. You're courting death. Black Flag's face was black with anger. He wanted to attack Lin Ling, but he did not dare to. He did not have Lin Ling's crazy spirit, attacking without regard for the consequences. He was very clear that if he attacked, Lei Gong would definitely teach him a lesson if Lei Gong found out about this. Of course, Lin Ling was the same. If Eugene knew about this, he would not let Lin Ling off the hook either. However, Lin Ling was even more daring than Black Flag and dared to attack. Lin Ling, where it is possible to let people off, one should spare them. Zhongshan couldn't stand it anymore and said, "If you continue to mess around like this, it'll be fun, but you'll be in trouble afterwards. Get lost." Lin Ling glared at Zhongshan and shouted coldly, "I want to beat up Wangu Yanhui. So what? Come and stop me if you have the ability. If you don't dare, then don't fart over there." Bullshit. His tyrannical voice echoed endlessly in the Guyuan mountain range. Bullshit, bullshit. Those echoes were also replaying in Zhongshan's ears. He was so angry that he wanted to explode. Lin Ling was telling him to fart less? He was too arrogant. The Yuan venerates and martial gods from the three races shuddered when they saw this scene. Lin Ling was indeed arrogant. After all, he was beating up Wangu Yanhui in front of a few trial takers. This kind of violent beating lasted for half an hour. In the end, Lin Ling released Wangu Yanhui. Although he dared to teach Wangu Yanhui a lesson, he did not dare to kill him. After all, killing a trial challenger was no small matter. Take him back and scram. Lin Ling shouted angrily as he threw Wangu Yanhui back. Heike took Wangu Yanhui from Huang Xiaolong's hands and examined him carefully. Wangu Yanhui's current state could only be described as miserable awe. His face was completely unrecognizable. His skin and flesh were split open, and his body was trembling from the electric shocks. How was this still a trial challenger? He was more like a drowning dog. This made him raise his head and glare at Lin Ling fiercely. He would definitely report this matter to Eugene and make Lin Ling pay the price for his arrogance. Lin Ling shrugged indifferently when he saw Black Flag's glare. He was now a 7-star trial taker, and had even prevented the great god of the spirit nation from descending. This merit was no small matter. Therefore, he reckoned that Lei Gong would definitely not blame him for beating up a trial taker. Therefore, Lin Ling raised his middle finger when he met Black Flag's glare. If you are not convinced, go ahead and sue me. Definitely. Black Flag nodded firmly. Remember, I, Lin Ling, am protecting the demonic origin forest. Today is just a small lesson. If you dare come here again, I won't give you a person, but a corpse. Lin Ling threatened again. I don't believe you. Black Flag revealed a sinister smile when he heard this. Go ahead and try. Lin Ling also smiled. His smile contained a hint of madness. Chapter 4192. All trial takers, return. However, at this moment, an aged voice suddenly resounded, and it clearly fell into everyone's ears. All trial takers, return? Hei Qi, Zhong Shan, and the others' expressions changed. This was the order of a god. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He immediately knew that the four gods' discussion had ended. Good timing, he, Lin Ling, wanted to see Lei Gong. Moreover, all the trial takers were gathered here. Lin Ling also wanted to see who the remaining 39 trial takers were. Lin Ling, your good luck ends here. See you later. Hei Qi snorted coldly and left with Wangu Yanhui. Zhong Shan, on the other hand, frowned as he looked at Lin Ling. His previous ferocious look had suddenly changed. It was as if he had expected better from Lin Ling. He was complaining about Lin Ling's ignorance, causing him to be unable to help Lin Ling even if he wanted to. However, after this matter, Lin Ling no longer treated Zhong Shan as a friend. Therefore, Lin Ling smiled and said, Brother Zhong Shan, do you have something to say? Lin Ling, I don't know what to say to you. Look at you, aren't you just stirring up trouble for no reason? Zhong Shan sighed. Since you don't know what to say to me, then there's no need to say anything. I'm not interested in listening. On the contrary, I know what I should say to you. Lin Ling said with a smile. His expression was a little cold. In short, get the fuck out of here. You. Zhong Shan gritted his teeth. Because of his anger, his teeth were crushed. However, he forcefully swallowed them into his stomach. Go to Lei Gong, I won't help you. He snorted angrily, flicked his sleeves and left. Despicable person. Looking at Zhong Shan's back, Lin Ling coldly snorted. Initially, Lin Ling had a pretty good impression of Zhong Shan. However, after this incident, he saw Zhong Shan clearly. This person was a despicable person. When Heike and the others were still around, Zhong Shan had been targeting him. Now that Heike and the others had left, Zhong Shan played the pity card as if everything was for Lin Ling's sake. It was as if he was thinking about her. Did they really think that he, Lin Ling, was a newbie? Metal Spirit Clan, Water Spirit Clan, get over here. After that, Lin Ling looked at the Guyuan mountain range and said. In the distance, the two races rushed over in a grandiose manner. Their faces were all pale, and they did not even dare to let out a fart. After experiencing the terrifying battle between the gods, they already knew what kind of existence Lin Ling, who used to be weak, was now. I've never had a good impression of your two clans. However, you two are still ancient clans. Thus, I'll let bygones be bygones. You two are now under my jurisdiction. Do you have any objections? Lin Ling looked at the two races and said calmly. No objections. No objections. We can't wait. The people of the two races shouted one after another. Previously, Lin Ling was so domineering that he even dared to beat up trial takers. If they could be protected by Lin Ling, it would be a great blessing. They never expected that not only did Linling not blame them, but he also wanted to protect them. That's good. You and the Wood Spirit Clan, Fire Spirit Clan, and Earth Spirit Clan will jointly manage the bottom of the Kaiyuan River. Be united and don't cause any trouble. Do you understand? Linling said sternly again. Yes, yes. The people of the two races hurriedly replied. Of course, if there's an enemy that you can't deal with, just say my name and say that this is the territory of trial taker Linling. Linling said again. This sentence was directed at the 5 races. Yes, sir. The 5 races shouted in unison. What Linling hadn't expected was that after the unification of the bottom of the Kaiyuan River, the legend of Linling was still being passed down here thousands of years later. Every martialist who entered the Kaiyuan River knew that in the past, a deity had unified the Kaiyuan River and was also the totem of the 5 races. Of course, this was a story for another time. Linling finally let out a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at the Yuan Venerate Martial God. The Yuan Venerate Martial God shuddered and said nervously, Linling, if you have anything to say, then say it. I'm leaving. I'll have to trouble you to take care of the Kaiyuan River. How about that? Linling said nonchalantly. Sure. The Yuan Venerate Martial God nodded immediately. Previously, Linling had beaten up Wangu Yanhui. This had undoubtedly scared the weak Yuan Venerate Martial God out of his wits. Thank you. We can be considered friends after a fight. I hope we can still be friends in the future. Linling's attitude towards the Yuan Venerate Martial God wasn't as fierce as before. Although the Yuan Venerate Martial God had wanted to teach Linling a lesson after his battle with the carefree sword martial god on the Guyuan mountain range, Linling didn't care about what had happened in the past after so many interactions. Furthermore, the Yuan Venerate Martial God was helping Linling look after this place, so Linling wouldn't give him a hard time. After all, Linling also knew that the Yuan Venerate Martial God was stronger than Linling in terms of strength. Yu, are you all going back? Linling asked Yu and the others. We'll stay here for the time being. Big Brother Ling, you have urgent matters to attend to. You should leave first. You'll offend the deity if you're late. Yu and the others looked at Linling obediently. All right, I'll look for you all when I return from the deity's side. Linling nodded. He naturally knew that it had to be an extremely urgent matter for the deity's order to reach the Kaiyuan River. Furthermore, he reckoned that this matter had to be related to the Spirit Nation. Therefore, after he said goodbye, he immediately left without stopping for a moment. Only the giant ghost followed him on this trip. The giant ghost sat on Linling's shoulder and said, If you meet Lei Gong, don't forget to ask him to help you resolve the matter of your Dantian. Linling nodded. His Dantian had been implanted with a mysterious power by the Spirit Nation. This matter couldn't be delayed any longer. It was better to resolve it as soon as possible. After leaving the Kaiyuan River, Linling appeared in the sky. He began to form complicated world spirit seals with his hands. After a short moment, rumbling sounds were heard. A flight of stairs extended out from the depths of the sky. It was the stairway to Godhead. Linling immediately went up the stairs. As time passed, the ancient Lei Gong's Grand Hall above his head quietly appeared before his eyes. Staring at the ancient Grand Hall, Linling felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that on this trip, he would definitely be able to step into the realm of the gods and search for the ultimate secret of the current 9 prefectures. This also meant that he, Linling, had finally stepped into the peak of the void. Of course, Linling also had a feeling that on this trip, he would meet Luli Empress. This was because this was the moment when the challengers gathered. When Linling arrived at the Lei Gong's Grand Hall, he saw that the Grand Hall was densely packed with figures. Moreover, all of them were indomitable powerhouses, like heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals. These people were also from the Lei Gong's Grand Hall. To the 9 prefectures, they were like deities. Just as Linling walked out of the sea god's stairs, many people looked over. Some immediately smiled, some remained indifferent, and some quietly flashed their eyes. Everyone had their own thoughts. However, it was obvious that they all knew the name Linling. Chapter 4193. Linling, come in. At this moment, an ancient voice sounded, causing everyone's eyes to light up. Because the voice came from Lei Gong's Grand Hall. Lin Ling immediately knew that this was Lei Gong's voice. He immediately walked towards Lei Gong's grand hall. Inside the grand hall, it was silent.
Not long after, Lin Ling came to a hall and saw an old man sitting there with a smile, as if he was a benevolent old man.
But for some reason, Lin Ling felt that the old man seemed to be different from before. Lei Gong was injured? A thought suddenly appeared in Lin Ling's mind.
The god of thunder, one of the four gods, was one of the four most powerful gods in the void.
How could he be injured? Could it be the spirit nation? It seemed that the spirit nation was more powerful than imagined. You've done a great service. When Lei Gong saw Lin Ling, he nodded in satisfaction. He stared at Lin Ling as if he was looking at a close friend. Originally, we didn't expect the spirit nation to be the world's will. However, the three of you trial takers found out the news. Furthermore, you stopped the spirit nation's great god from descending. That spirit nation's great god is the host of the world's will, and it's a yellow host. Lei Gong said calmly, if not for your interruption, when the spirit nation's great god descended, I'm afraid there would be a lot of twists and turns. Yellow host. Lin Ling was shocked and asked curiously, this world's will host has different colors? That's right. Lei Gong nodded. Most of the normal hosts of the world's will are black. However, these hosts are too weak, so unless it's necessary, the world's will not choose them.
Black should be the ones that I usually see.
Upon hearing this, Lin Ling recalled something. He had seen many of these black hosts. Apart from black, the other colors are green, blue, yellow, red, gold, and purple. According to legend, if the purple world will's host body appears, no one can stop it, and it will be difficult to escape from the great calamity.
And during the era of gods, the host body that appeared was red.
Although it's the yellow world's will host that has appeared this time, it's not something we can stop. After all, the void today can't compare to the era of the gods. Moreover, this time, the four of us went to investigate and discovered a secret. There are many world wills, but they all seem to be hidden in a certain void. The ones left in our 9 continents are only an incomparably small portion. Although I don't know what those world wills are, they are all hidden in a certain void. Why would they hide there? However, at the very least, they were sure that if those world wills all rushed out, then no one could stop them, the void would be destroyed, no more creatures left. Lei Gong enunciated each word with a solemn expression. Many years ago, in the broken world of gods, there are many mysterious circles. After our investigation, we found that those seem to be left behind by the gods. When martial artists are in those circles, they can improve their talent and recover a part of their strength. Yes. Lei Gong looked at Lin Ling and said, someone once said that many of the martial artists today are reincarnations of the gods. Therefore, if we can find those mysterious circles, it is very likely that the gods will return, and the void of the 9 continents will reach an unprecedented peak state. Yes. Originally, this matter was not confirmed, and we 4 great gods did not want to announce it. But now, the spirit nation is ready to make a move. With the current strength of the 9 continents, it is impossible to resist. Therefore, we 4 great gods decided to seal the 9 continents. Yes. Seal the 9 continents? Yes. Hearing this, Lin Ling's heart thundered. He never thought that the 4 great gods would have such a method. One must know that the spirit nation could cultivate gods, but the 4 great gods did not have such methods. However, they were not weak either. They found the god circles left behind in the past and let the gods return to their positions. If the people who entered the god circles were not gods, then wouldn't it be a waste? Lin Ling suddenly asked. No. Although they can't return to their positions as gods, they can greatly improve their talent. After all, those god circles have been nurtured in the world of gods for many years. They already have supreme divine power. Lei Gong shook his head and said, I just don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Yes. Chapter 4194. At that time, many people's strength would increase crazily. Without the tempering process, they would be like a tall building without a foundation, collapsing at any time. However, there were not many choices left for them. Then what is the spirit nation's goal? Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and quickly asked. Xiao Luan, as well as the worlds will sealed in the Dragon Clan, and even the other worlds will hosts. Because the spirit nation's great god wants to devour them and use them to increase his own level. I guess that this spirit nation's great god is the great god of destruction from the era of gods. Lei Gong said word by word. Most importantly, we only know of 2 hosts of the world's will. The whereabouts of the others are unknown. I'm afraid that a few hosts have been devoured by the spirit nation's great god. If the spirit nation's great god increases his level and reaches the gold level, he will be sealed. Those world's wills in the void will all be freed and controlled by him. He will also become the ultimate form, the purple world's will. Hearing this, Lin Ling finally understood why the 4 great gods wanted the 9 continents to become gods. With the current strength of the 9 continents, it was impossible to fight against the spirit nation. Therefore, they needed to increase the strength of all warriors, especially the trial takers and the divine generals below the gods. Lin Ling, in reality the 4 great gods are not leaders. We are a kind of inheritors, people who pass down the flames of war from the era of gods. Back then, the 4 great gods were no longer leaders. It was the gods above us who fought against the world's will. We can't display any abilities. The only thing we can do is to protect this country and let the next generation grow up. And you are the one I think the most highly of. In the future, you will definitely be able to lead the humans to defeat the world's will. At the end, Lei Gong looked at Lin Ling with a burning gaze. Seeing this, Lin Ling smiled bitterly. He did not want to be such a hero. He only wanted to be a free and unfettered hero, not a king. A chivalrous hero can only save one person, but an emperor can save the world. However, Lin Ling did not promise anything. Instead, he changed the topic and said, for now, other than protecting Xiaoluan and the Dragon Clan's host bodies, we still need to find other hosts to control those world wills. If that happens, the great god of Spirit Kingdom will not be able to get what he wants. That's right, the 4 gods are also trying their best to find the remaining hosts, but the Kurishin found records of hosts in the 8-god celestial palace. When the time comes, it's inevitable that we'll have to pay a visit to the 8-god celestial palace. However, for now, we should focus on the investiture of the 9 continents. Lei Gong said indifferently. Then he stood up, his robe fluttering. He looked at Lin Ling expectantly and said, "You have the body of my close friend Lei Jia. All this time, I have not given you any guidance. I originally wanted to pass it on to you after the mission, but now, it's time. I will pass on to your close friend, Lei Jia's true body of Lei Jia. This divine ability is ranked 3rd in the lightning control technique in the Age of Gods. Moreover, I will also suppress my lifetime's understanding of the lightning element into this technique. When you have some understanding of the technique, my understanding of the lightning element will help you. Lin Ling, receive my inheritance." The god of thunder let out a loud roar, and his entire body was filled with lightning. Rumble! The entire palace shook, causing the expressions of the people outside to change drastically. They did not know what was happening. However, Lei Gong had ordered that no one was allowed to enter the palace, so they could only let their imaginations run wild. Crackle! Endless lightning wrapped around Lin Ling, like tentacles pulling Lin Ling up, causing Lin Ling's body to float in the air. Lightning wreaked havoc all over his body. Lei Jia's true body is stronger than my lightning element divine fetus. However, the current you has yet to unleash its full power. Boom! Lei Gong's old voice rang in Lin Ling's ears. Lin Ling felt like his body was about to split apart, and he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. However, he had been practicing martial arts all his life and had already experienced countless painful scenes. Therefore, he gritted his teeth and endured it. Good perseverance. Lei Gong let out a hearty laugh. He poured all the lightning into Lin Ling. In Lin Ling's dantian, the dantian of Lei Jia's true body was torn apart by a violent force. Then, a large amount of things were forcefully stuffed into it. These were all Lei Gong's lifetime understanding of the lightning element and Lei Jia's true body. Time passed quietly. Crackle, crackle. Behind Lin Ling, a pair of wings formed by white thunderbolts rushed out as if they were tearing through Lin Ling's shoulders. This pair of wings was 5 meters long and formed by thunderbolts. When it was gently flapped, it could easily cut through the void. Lin Ling abruptly opened his eyes and let out a roar. From his mouth, a large amount of white lightning spewed out. A large amount of ancient voices floated in his mind. First level of Lei Jia's true body, swift thunder and swift wind. It increased the power of the lightning god by 100 streaks and increased the speed of 10,000 worlds. This meant that if the current Lin Ling fused his innate talent with Lei Zhi's true body, his speed could reach 25,000 worlds. Most importantly, Lin Ling's true body of Lei Zhi had also greatly improved, reaching the level of a third-grade lesser divine fetus. Walala! Lei Gong also let go of Lin Ling, allowing Lin Ling to comprehend.
He knew that this inheritance was very domineering.
It could allow a martial artist to quickly comprehend the lightning element, but because it was domineering, ordinary people couldn't withstand it. If Lin Ling didn't have the true body of Lei Zhi, he wouldn't have been able to devour these comprehensions. It was also because of this that Lei Gong had waited for so many years and encountered countless lightning element innate talents, but he still wasn't moved. Walala! In the air, Lin Ling's wings moved slightly. Every time they moved, white lightning would wreak havoc in all directions. In his mind, lightning element comprehensions appeared from nowhere, filling his mind and soul. Almost at the same time, a clear spring floated out and landed at Lin Ling's feet. Then, it turned into a sparkling mist and covered Lin Ling's body. Rumble! 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 Lin Ling's body resounded. This was because Lin Ling had successfully stepped into the 7th-level martial god realm. Moreover, when the clear spring gradually dried up, Lin Ling's 6 dantians had all reached the perfect realm. Obviously, with the help of the lightning element comprehensions, Lin Ling had naturally broken through. This brat actually got his hands on the divine spring. Tiska. He used a divine spring to break through. The amount of energy needed to break through is really huge.
No wonder he can fight against people who are at a higher level than him. Now that he is in the martial god realm, I'm afraid he is invincible except for the 10 great martial gods of the 9 prefectures. As long as they're in the martial god realm, 90% of them are no match for him. Lei Gong praised and slowly walked back to his seat. At this moment, he was very tired, like an old man who was staggering. Chapter 4195. After a long while, Lin Ling slowly floated down and the wings behind him disappeared. His face was full of shock. The real body of the Thunderlock was indeed powerful. He had only cultivated the 1st level and had already produced 100 strands of the power of God. In addition to his tyrannical song sword and his own power of God, Lin Ling had a total of 260 strands of the power of God.
What a pity, I wasted a holy spring, Lin Ling said regretfully. This was because he had prepared the holy spring for his 7th dantian. Thank you, Lord Lei Gong. After sensing for a while, Lin Ling looked at Lei Gong and bowed gratefully. Seeing this, Lei Gong waved his hand and smiled. All right, Lord Lei Gong, last time at the Spiritual Light City.
Lin Ling then told him about the mysterious power that Lord Ning had left in his body.
What? Hearing this, Lei Gong's expression changed. He then immediately checked on Lin Ling's behalf.
However, he quickly frowned and said, I can't sense it.
It seems that this power is more terrifying than I imagined. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. If even Lei Gong couldn't sense it, this meant that the power was hidden very deeply. This was because although Lin Ling couldn't sense it, his intuition told him that the power was scattered in his 6 dantians. Now that Lei Gong couldn't do anything, he could only rely on himself. This power is no small matter. Lin Ling, I have to discuss this with the Curishin. When you return from the investiture of the gods, I will give you an answer. Lei Gong was obviously more nervous about the mysterious power in Lin Ling's dantian. This was because if that power exploded, Lin Ling would become a citizen of the Spirit Nation. This was naturally not something he wanted to see.
This was because he had already treated Lin Ling as his only successor.
Therefore, he had to get rid of that power even if he had to risk his life. Don't worry, I won't die for the time being. Lin Ling saw the worried look on Lei Gong's face and said, Don't worry. After all, although this power was terrifying, it wouldn't awaken so quickly.
If the 9 dantians of the Chaos Divine skill were to be born, Lin Ling's intuition told him that any power would be destroyed by the 9 dantians.
Next, leave with the rest of us. Someone will bring you to the realm of the gods. Seeing that Lin Ling wasn't worried about his gains and losses, Lei Gong smiled and said with satisfaction, Thank you, Lord Lei Gong. Lin Ling bowed to the Thunder God again, then turned and left. He had completed the mission. Originally, he could have received several mission rewards, but now he was too embarrassed to mention it. This was especially true for the Luai's true body. Although Lin Ling had only cultivated to the 1st level, The second level would be born on its own once he reached that level. He didn't need to think about it. At this moment, everyone was waiting outside the palace. When they saw Lin Ling come out, they all had complicated expressions. Although they didn't know why Lei Gong was looking for Lin Ling, they still felt that Lei Gong valued Lin Ling very much. Lin Ling is here. Let's go. At this moment, one of the elders looked at Lin Ling with a smile, then said to the crowd. Everyone nodded in agreement. Zhong Shan's face was ashen. Originally, he wanted to see Lei Gong today, but Lei Gong refused to see anyone. Therefore, he could only ask the elder for help and complain about Lin Ling. But who knew that the elder would say to Zhong Shan, "Serves you right." This undoubtedly made Zhong Shan gnash his teeth in anger. However, he thickened his skin and asked. Only then did he know that Lin Ling was indeed a 7-star trial taker. His status was even higher than Zhong Shan's, which made him feel aggrieved and angry. Of course, other than him, the other trial takers also had strange looks in their eyes. 7-star trial taker. Sister Zhan was incomparably jealous. 7-star. Shangyi's eyes were also shining. He was an 8-star trial taker, and Lin Ling was a latecomer. However, he was about to catch up with him in the blink of an eye. Most importantly, he sensed that although Lin Ling's level was lower than his, Lei Gong seemed to value Lin Ling more. It could be said that Lin Ling was now Lei Gong's favorite. Lin Ling followed the elder and looked behind him. He realized that many people were stronger than Lin Ling. As for the trial takers, only a few of them were familiar to Lin Ling. The rest were unfamiliar faces. However, according to Lin Ling's assessment, these trial challengers were not weak. Among them, his strength should only be above average. Of course, in terms of cultivation level, Lin Ling was the weakest among them. There are only 9 of them? Suddenly, Lin Ling's eyes flashed. He realized that one trial taker was missing. I'm here. Right at this moment, a young and tender voice sounded from afar. After that, a boy around the age of 10 who wore a long robe walked over indifferently with his hands behind his back. He looked young, but his aura was not to be trifled with. This was because his cultivation level had surpassed the martial god realm. When they saw the boy, their expressions changed slightly. The trial takers, in particular, twitched their eyes. They seemed to be afraid of the boy. Could this be the #1 trial taker under Lei Gong? Lin Ling secretly gasped as he stared at the mature boy. Are you going to the divine realm now? Hurry up then. After the boy arrived, he glanced at the crowd with contempt and spoke in a young voice. However, his voice also carried a domineering aura. Yes, Lord Qilin. The old man who led the way said with a smile. When he saw Lin Ling's confusion, he immediately sent a telepathic message. This is the #1 trial taker. His name is Qilin. His strength is unfathomable. I heard that he has the bloodline of the Qilin King bloodline and is the Qilin King himself. Although he looks young, in fact, he has lived for 9,999 years and witnessed the fall of the gods. TSK. Lin Ling took a deep breath when he heard that. This kid is too abnormal. No wonder everyone looked at him with fear. Lin Ling guessed that this boy should be the only 9-star trial taker. With the addition of Qilin, the crowd, who had been chatting cheerfully before, became much less talkative. It was as if they were afraid of being targeted. Hey, Aguda, where's the blood fruit you promised me last time? At that moment, the young voice suddenly sounded. The boy was still strolling in the void, but he turned his head to look. A trial taker who was at the peak of the martial god realm trembled and immediately said with a smile, "This blood fruit is a little hard to find." Is that so? The boy's expression did not change, but he disappeared in an instant and appeared next to the trial taker. He twisted the trial taker's ear and said, "So, you stood me up? Do you know how to write the word death?" Little ancestor, spare my life, spare my life. I have the blood fruit, I have it. Here. The trial taker immediately became obedient. He took out a blood-red fruit and handed it to the boy. Chapter 4196. Xueqi, are you not convinced? Of course, as he walked forward, he said, "The bloodline of the Eastern Emperor Tai. Haha, we haven't fought in a long time." Xueqi was ranked second among the challengers and had always been dignified. However, at this moment, he smiled awkwardly. Let's wait until after the investiture of the gods ends. It was obvious that he was also very wary of that boy. Coward. The boy immediately cursed, but Xueqi didn't refute him. Linling's heart sank when he saw this scene. How was this a child? This was a little tyrant. Shaking his head, Linling chose to ignore that boy. He would try not to provoke him. You must be Linling. However, the boy's gaze suddenly fell on Linling. He smiled and said, "This is the first time we've met. Don't you think you should give me a greeting gift?" As soon as he said this, the eyes of the challengers lit up. They secretly rejoiced in his misfortune. This was because all of them had suffered a lot at the hands of that boy. Now, Linling, the newcomer, was finally being targeted. I think he'll be made very difficult for him. Hee. Linling's life has always been smooth sailing. I really want to see him in trouble. The trial takers secretly whispered to each other, licking their lips in excitement. Although they were very polite to Linling on the surface, it would be a lie to say that they weren't jealous that Linling, a newcomer, was able to meet Lei Gong alone time after time. I don't know what you want as a greeting gift. Linling secretly cursed his bad luck. However, what was to come was already here. Therefore, he could only face it calmly. Let me think. The boy stroked his chin and actually started to think. However, his thoughtful look made the challengers even more expectant. This was because they knew that the more the young Qilin thought, the more difficult it would be. Even Xueqi revealed a rare smile. He also wanted to see what the young Qilin would ask Linling for. Forget it, I'll ask you again next time. However, just as everyone was looking forward to it, the young Qilin suddenly shook its head and walked towards Linling as if they were close friends. It smiled and said to Linling, "We're friends. Friends shouldn't ask friends for things." Looking at him, one moment he was mature, and the next moment he was like a child. It was impossible to see through him. Linling was also secretly surprised, but he still took out a bottle of wine with a smile. Since that's the case, then I'll gift you a bottle of wine. Hee, wine. I haven't drunk any wine either. You're my friend. The young Qilin smiled and raised its arm, patting Linling's shoulder. That action was like that of a veteran. Ah, that's it. The people behind all opened their mouths wide and let out cries of disbelief. Because Linling's treatment was too good. Moreover, it was only the first time they met. That little tyrant who always made things difficult for others treated Linling as a friend. This young Qilin, why? Zhongshan was undoubtedly the most dissatisfied. Because when he first became a trial challenger, he was toyed with for 100 years. Later on, the young Qilin told him that it was tired of playing with him, so it let Zhongshan go. Now, it was also Linling's first time meeting the young Qilin. Why was the young Qilin so easy to talk to? Because he looks more decent than all of you. The young Qilin drank the wine and said honestly, This. Such an explanation naturally made the crowd unhappy. No matter how they looked at it, they didn't think that Linling was any more decent than them. What? Are you unhappy? I like to treat Linling as a friend. Go ahead and flatter me. Seeing that the crowd was gnashing their teeth, the young Qilin pouted. That look made the crowd angry, but they didn't dare to say anything. They could only secretly feel depressed. In fact, no one knew that the reason the young Qilin didn't make things difficult for Linling was not because Linling looked decent, but because Lei Gong had warned it. That was all. Although this small episode made many people depressed, many people were secretly looking forward to the upcoming investiture of the gods in the 9 states. And this journey went on for an unknown period of time. Linling felt as if he had reached the other side of the void. Finally, a large number of people began to appear in front of him. Looking carefully, they were all strong people. They seemed to be people from the Curishan. Many trial takers immediately looked in Linling's direction. When they saw Linling, a few of them even waved to greet him. Among them were Sister Xueqi, Little South, and the 2 trial takers who had helped Linling at the Kaiyuan River. Speaking of which, although Linling was one of Lei Gong's people, the time he spent in Lei Gong's hall was short. Instead, he spent a few years with the Curishan. Therefore, he was more familiar with the trial takers from the Curishan side. Moreover, the trial takers from the Curishan side had a unique style. All of them pretended to be farmers, which gave people a very friendly feeling. Linling. Little South and the others all waved, and Lin Ling also smiled and greeted them. His eyes swept around, trying to find Xiaoluan, but this time, he didn't see Xiaoluan's figure. This Lin Ling is quite popular. The trial takers from the Kirishan side all seem to have a good relationship with him. Seeing the group opposite them greet him politely, Zhong Shan and the others were secretly jealous, especially Sister Zhen. She was in an extremely bad mood. When she saw Lin Ling, she felt her teeth itch. Auntie! After the experts from both sides met up, Lin Ling bowed to an old woman from the Kirishan side. This old woman was probably the leader of this group, but back when they were in the Kirishan side, she had a very good relationship with Lin Ling. If Lin Ling remembered correctly, this auntie raised chickens. God often wanted to stew chickens, but he was always scolded by this auntie. When Lin Ling was about to leave, the auntie killed a chicken to send Lin Ling off, which made the Kirishan laugh for the entire day. Lin Ling, long time no see. The old woman also looked at Lin Ling with a smile on her face, and the few of them started chatting with each other. Not long after, two groups of people came from afar. The experts on the left were all wearing armor, and their auras were extraordinary. Looking at them, it seemed like they were from the Titanic Crescent God. The other group was undoubtedly from Eugene. Lin Ling was familiar with one of them, Luli Empress. This was Lin Ling's second time seeing Luli Empress since he took his revenge. At this moment, Luli Empress was accompanied by a middle-aged man. She was wearing a long empress robe and a phoenix crown. Her hands were behind her back, and her aura was extremely strong, as if she was the ruler of the void. Of course, when she swept her gaze, it finally landed on Lin Ling. Their gazes seemed to have transcended countless years to meet in the current era. Moreover, the blood in their bodies seemed to be boiling at this moment. This was because they seemed to want to completely settle the grudges and hatred that had existed for thousands of generations. Of course, Lin Ling was calm and held back in the end. This was because he knew that he was no match for Luli Empress. After all, Luli Empress was one of the top 10 martial gods in the 9 states, and her strength was ranked second. She was much stronger than Lin Ling. Chapter 4197. Although the two of them did not speak, they were familiar with each other and knew what the other was thinking with just a glance. Therefore, seeing that Lin Ling had restrained his killing intent, Luli Empress snorted coldly in her heart. Previously, she had wanted Lin Ling to lose his mind and attack her. At that time, she could have used the opportunity to kill Lin Ling. However, Lin Ling was too calm. Just like Li Xiaoyao, he had ruined her wishful thinking. Moreover, although she had not been in contact with Lin Ling, she knew that Lin Ling was growing at a crazy speed. Even she was frightened by the speed of his growth. Of course, besides her, He Qi and Wangu Yanhui, who were not far behind her, were also glaring at Lin Ling furiously. Not long ago, they had reported Lin Ling's matter to Eugene. They had wanted to use Eugene's name to deal a fatal blow to Lin Ling. However, Eugene had said that Lin Ling was not to be touched. They had even said that it was Lin Ling who had disrupted Ling Country's plan and exposed Ling Country's identity in Spirit Light City. Therefore, he was now a hero. Whoever dared to touch him would be provoking the 4 great gods. With this order, He Qi and Wangu Yanhui gritted their teeth in anger. For the time being, they did not dare to act rashly. Everyone is here. Everyone. At this time, someone said in a low voice. With this voice, all the experts of the 4 great gods gathered together. A terrifying aura quietly spread out and swept through the entire void. Lin Ling, who was in the middle of it, naturally felt the terrifying aura. He was secretly surprised. Experts were indeed as common as clouds. Among this group of people, his strength could only be considered average. Then, Lin Ling's gaze swept across the group. This group of experts represented the pinnacle of the 9 prefectures. Their appearances and auras were all unique. Someone carried a huge ancient book on his back and stood with his hands behind his back. Someone was standing on top of a golden jade like a javelin. Some of them looked up into the sky and seemed to be pondering about something. In this group of experts, Lin Ling seemed a little ordinary. Other than a few people, no one paid attention to him. Your gods will give you a map that will lead you to the God Ring. Take the map and enter the God world. While everyone was waiting, an aged voice suddenly rang out. As soon as he finished speaking, the leading figures of the 4 gods also handed over bamboo slips to everyone. Lin Ling also obtained a bamboo slip. The surface of this bamboo slip was very ordinary, but after Lin Ling poured his spirit energy into it, the bamboo slip immediately emitted a gentle light, and a complicated map appeared within it. It could be seen that the bamboo scroll recorded everyone's aura. Different auras were instilled into it, and the map was also different. On the map, there was a dot of light that was the most dazzling. Clearly, that was the divine circle. Immediately, Lin Ling put away the bamboo scroll. The others were the same. They all had mysterious expressions on their faces. It could be seen that each of them went to a different divine circle. They did not want others to know their secrets. Let's go then. Under the lead of an unknown expert, the experts moved forward majestically. Everyone was very strong, so their speed was also incomparably fast. You are all the strongest experts in the 9 prefectures, and also the first batch of people to enter the 9 prefectures. Next, there will be other experts from the 9 prefectures entering the God World one after another. However, don't think that the God World is safe because there are no more gods. I can tell you that the God World is incomparably dangerous. There are many forbidden lands, and the power left behind after the War of the Gods has not dissipated. If you encounter them, you will have a 90% chance of survival. Also, the Spirit Nation also has a way to enter the God World. Therefore, if the Spirit Nation knows of our plan, they will definitely come to interrupt us. A voice came from the front, warning them. Hearing this, many people nodded their heads. Now, they had a general understanding of the Spirit Nation. Therefore, even if they were to die, they would not join the Spirit Nation. After a long time, a huge heavenly gate appeared in front of them. This gate was grand and had a radius of 1,000 miles. Its entire body was made of unknown rocks. The 5-meter-thick gate pillars were full of battle scars. There were sword scars, fist scars, and so on. It could be seen that it was during the War of the Gods. This heavenly gate had been implicated many times. Boom! Someone stared at one of the fist scars. Suddenly, his body was filled with a powerful divine power. He had actually used those ancient scars to break through to the divine power. Many people's eyes flashed as they looked at that person with slight envy. Sure enough, those who could appear here were not weak. They had actually broken through with the help of the ancient fist scars. Their perception was too monstrous. Of course, the fist scars were also very extraordinary. After so many years, they still had an indescribable divine power. Then, many people looked inside the gate. They saw that inside the ancient gate, there was a huge gray vortex. Endless electric snakes flowed along the vortex, looking extremely violent. This was the southern heavenly gate of the God Realm. Through this gate you can reach the God Realm. An old man's voice floated out. However, the power of the gray vortex is very strong. You have to resist it with all your strength before you can enter. Swoosh! Swoosh! Next, the strongest few people took the lead and shot into the gray vortex. Their figures immediately disappeared. Seeing this, everyone no longer hesitated and shot into the vortex. Lin Ling also fused his talents and the 6 divine fetuses appeared. This was because his intuition told him that the gray vortex was definitely not to be underestimated. Of course, other than him, those who came here for the first time also used their full strength. Rumble! This caused a ferocious aura to surge out in front of the ancient heavenly gate. If this power was placed in the 9 states, it would definitely cause the 9 states to tremble. However, compared to the divine power of the past, this power was undoubtedly like a cup of water. The ancient heavenly gate did not even budge. Swish! Following the crowd, Lin Ling shot into the gray vortex. Just as he was about to enter, he sensed several hostile gazes, the most intense of which was Luli Empress. After entering, let's see who can increase their strength more. Lin Ling also heard Luli Empress's cold voice. Let's wait and see. The corners of Lin Ling's mouth twitched slightly as he nodded indifferently. Currently, there was a huge gap between him and Luli Empress, but this gap was constantly shrinking. Therefore, Luli Empress was also pressured. Obviously, she wanted to use the investiture of the gods of the 9 states to widen the gap again. When the time came, she would find a chance to kill Lin Ling. As for Lin Ling, he naturally wanted to reduce this gap. Rumble! 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 The tyrannical vortex seemed to want to tear Lin Ling to shreds. This also caused Lin Ling to be unable to see the hostile gazes directed at him and who they were.
Chapter 4198. Kill. Ancient battle cries could be heard vaguely. The vortex seemed to have recorded the sounds of the battle of gods. Chi chi chi. Lin Ling's blood gushed out continuously, but the blood turned into nothingness under the gray energy. The gray vortex was indeed terrifying. Luai's true form. Lin Ling had already unleashed his full strength, but it was still difficult to resist, so he activated the Luai's true form. Whoosh! In the endless gray vortex, a pair of white wings appeared. It was incomparably dazzling, like a small boat in the vast ocean. Whoosh! However, this small boat carried a terrifying speed as it shot out along with the waves. The speed of 25,000 world speed burst out. Rumble! The burst of speed, coupled with the deafening sound all around, made Lin Ling feel that the sound in his ears was like an explosion. Boom! Finally, a different explosion rang out. Then his eyes lit up, and all the pressure disappeared. However, just as the pressure disappeared, an indescribable gravity attacked and smashed Lin Ling down. Ha! Lin Ling roared and flapped the wings behind him. Only then did he stop the pressure. With a sweep of his soul power, he found that the pressure came from the void around him. It seemed to be the pressure of gods. However, the spiritual energy here was extremely dense. No, it could be called the spiritual energy of gods. It was because of the spiritual energy of gods that Lin Ling felt such a huge pressure. You're back. At this time, a sigh sounded from Lin Ling's shoulder. The giant ghost floated up and looked into the distance with nostalgia. This caused Lin Ling to also look into the distance. This place was similar to the void, but in the endless void, there were fragments of continents floating there. Some of the continents were very majestic, while others were like small islands. They floated in the starry sky like bright comets. And within it, an incomparably ancient aura also quietly floated over. Lin Ling could even see the remains of palaces and buildings on a nearby continent fragment. That place seemed to have once been incomparably prosperous. The giant ghost must have lived here before. Then, Lin Ling looked at the excited giant ghost. After getting used to it, he put away the Luai's true form and fused with his talent. However, the moment he put it away, Lin Ling's body still sank slightly. His body was no longer as light and convenient as before. My physical strength is increasing. Lin Ling sensed it and discovered that during the process of adaptation, his body was also undergoing a transformation. He had long since stopped wearing the dragon god armor because he had fought too many battles in the past few days. He often needed to be at his peak, so it was very inconvenient to wear the dragon god armor. However, after coming to the divine realm, Lin Ling discovered that the pressure here could also produce the same effect as the dragon god armor. After that, Lin Ling did not interrupt the giant ghost. Instead, he continued to adapt to the divine pressure. He also recalled the danger when he passed through the gray vortex earlier and secretly felt lucky. If even he was in such a state, then the gods who were weaker than him would inevitably end up injured. After a long time, Lin Ling stood up and became more familiar with the surroundings. At this time, the giant ghost also floated over and said with a hint of nostalgia, "Master used to live here for a very, very long time." What do you remember? Lin Ling was shocked. The giant ghost nodded. In fact, the giant ghost of Han Xie and I are the same consciousness of my master. My master cultivated the last stage of the supreme ego-forgetting divine technique, and wanted to cut off all 7 emotions and 6 desires. That's why we were separated. Obviously, it had recalled many things. Lin Ling's eyes flashed. Although he had guessed what the giant ghost said, he did not expect that the former 8 gods were separated by the giant ghost because they cultivated the supreme ego-forgetting divine technique. This meant that the giant ghost was actually a consciousness, an emotion. However, now that this consciousness had gradually matured, it had its own thoughts. If the supreme ego-forgetting divine technique is cultivated successfully, it will be comparable to the will of the world. My master's original plan was to use his will to destroy the will of the world. The giant ghost said faintly. However, the 8 gods failed. Lin Ling guessed. The giant ghost nodded. I wonder how my master is now. Lin Ling, promise me that you will take me to the 8 gods celestial palace once, okay? Okay. Lin Ling agreed. Lei Gong also asked him to go to the 8 gods celestial palace. Coupled with the giant ghost's matter, Lin Ling had to go to the 8 gods celestial palace. Moreover, in his previous life, he also had an obsession,
And that was to reach the final stage of the 8 God Celestial Palace. Last time, Han Xie's giant ghost seemed to want to devour the 8 gods, right? Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and asked. Yes, that's no longer a giant ghost, but an evil ghost. It's an evil consciousness of the 8 gods. Moreover, it knows more than me, so I have to stop it from devouring my master. The giant ghost said. When the time comes, I'll help you. Lin Ling nodded. Thank you. The giant ghost couldn't help but look at Lin Ling and thank him. Now, he didn't seem to have any ferocious aura. Instead, he seemed more human. Lin Ling smiled faintly and looked into the distance. Then he took out the bamboo scroll. This is my god ring. It seems that there are many god rings in the god realm, and Lei Gong specially arranged one for me. I've never seen this god ring before. After all, it didn't exist in the past. However, I'm guessing that it was left behind after the gods fell. Since it can restore a warrior's divine embryo, Lin Ling, you definitely can't miss it. The giant ghost nodded. Lin Ling flew forward with the giant ghost. Not long after, they arrived at a fragment of the continent that was more than 100 meters in size. There were ruins on top of it, and a stone tablet that had been cut in half sat there. The words Ling Shao Hall were engraved on top of it. This stone tablet should have drifted here after the great war between the gods. The giant ghost said immediately. Lin Ling looked around and didn't find any valuable treasures, so he left immediately. Whoosh, whoosh. An ancient wind blew around, giving off a feeling of loneliness and desolation. Moving forward like this, Lin Ling passed by a large number of fragments of the continent. However, he didn't see anyone. Instead, he saw many traces of battle. For example, there was a huge crater the size of a fist on top of a huge continent in the distance. This crater had a radius of 10,000 miles. It was as if a god had smashed down with his fist during the era of the gods, causing a huge explosion. I'm afraid the divine realm was destroyed during the Great War of the Gods. Lin Ling said in shock. As he moved forward, a continent that stretched as far as the eye could see appeared in front of him. Moreover, there was a huge stone door on the ground near Lin Ling. It lay there quietly as if it had been abandoned by time. Chapter 4199. How many heavenly gates are there in the divine world? Lin Ling asked curiously. The giant ghost nodded. There are 4 heavenly gates. The one we entered was the southern heavenly gate. Who would have thought that the northern heavenly gate would be smashed into the divine world, and it seems to have been completely destroyed. From what you said, other than the northern heavenly gate, there are 2 other gates. What if the spirit nation entered from the other 2 gates? Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and asked solemnly. There is such a possibility. Therefore, the most important thing right now is to find the god ring as soon as possible and return you to your position. When your strength increases, you won't have to be so afraid anymore. The giant ghost turned to look at Lin Ling with anticipation in its eyes. If the god ring could really return gods to their positions, what kind of god was Lin Ling in the past? After following Lin Ling for so long, the giant ghost had long guessed that Lin Ling must have been a god in his past life, but it didn't know what level of god he was. Was it a high god or a mid-god? Lin Ling, I didn't expect you to still be alive. While Lin Ling and the giant ghost were staring at the stone door, a cold chuckle was suddenly heard. Soon after, a few figures shot over from afar. With a few rumbles, they smashed onto the ground, causing dust to fly as those people slowly walked towards Lin Ling. The person in the lead was actually Zhong Shan, and beside him was Wang Guyanhui and several old men who looked quite strong. Haha, I didn't expect to meet you here. After seeing Lin Ling, Zhong Shan and Wang Guyanhui couldn't hold back their laughter, rubbing their palms together with anticipation. In the 9 prefectures, they really didn't dare to touch Lin Ling. But in the divine world, as far as they knew, even gods couldn't set their eyes on this place. Therefore, if they touched Lin Ling, no one would know. They never thought that they would be so lucky to run into Lin Ling the moment they entered the divine world. Lin Ling looked at them and replied calmly, that's right. He had already noticed that these people were not as strong as him, and some of them were injured. Obviously, they were injured when they passed through the gray vortex. This is all you want to say to us? Lin Ling's simple words made the excited Zhong Shan and the others very unhappy. They thought that Lin Ling would be shocked or even panicked.
Who knew that it was just an oh? Oh,
Lin Ling said again.
bastard.
Zhongshan and Wangu Yanhui were furious. Lin Ling, let me tell you today, I, Zhongshan, will represent Palace Hall Lei Gong to teach you a lesson. Zhongshan gritted his teeth and unleashed his full strength. His godly aura rolled out and shook the hearts of the people. His talent was terrifying. He was a divine tree fetus and was at the innate realm. A gray piece of wood immediately appeared in his hand. It looked ordinary, and its surface was even a little rough, but it contained the might of the great Tao. This is my divine tree fetus, a divine fetus that can sweep away everything. Zhongshan gripped the wooden piece of wood in his hand and grinned. Then, he swung it at Lin Ling. Wangu Yanhui became excited seeing this. He had lost to Lin Ling last time, so he knew that Lin Ling was much stronger than him. However, Zhongshan was stronger than him. He was a 6-star trial taker, and his strength had surpassed the 9 prefectures' vicious 10 leader. Most importantly, Zhongshan's attacks did not seem strong, but his divine fetus was very strange. It specialized in countering divine fetus physiques. Unless Lin Ling's divine fetus grade was higher than Zhongshan's, his divine fetus would not be able to display its power. It could be said that Zhongshan was the nemesis of gods. Moreover, Zhongshan's divine fetus grade was still low. If it reached mid-level god realm, it would be a nightmare.
Oh.
However, Lin Ling's reply was still the same. Everyone was enraged, especially Zhongshan. He held the wooden piece of wood, but he did not swing it down immediately. This was because he had waited for so long not just for an "oh" from Lin Ling.
Die.
Then, he swung his wooden piece at Lin Ling. It seemed like an ordinary movement, but it carried the rhythm of the great Tao. The divine wind swept over with a sealing power. Lin Ling could feel that his 6 divine fetus were drowsy, and it was difficult to activate them. This divine tree was similar to Mini Kunlun. It had the power to seal talents. However, Lin Ling's divine fetus was not the only thing that was powerful.
Clang.
The tyrannical song sword appeared in his hand. 100 rays of divine energy appeared and mixed with the energy of his 6 stanchions and his physical body, slashing out. He was now a 7th-level martial god. With the fusion of his 6 stanchions, even if he did not use his divine fetus, his boundary essence was extremely terrifying.
Bang.
With a loud explosion, Zhongshan's divine tree was sent flying by the slash. His divine fetus was not weak, or it would have been cut in half.
Puff.
Zhongshan spat out a mouthful of blood as he was sent flying. The rest of the people were dumbfounded. Wangu Yanhui was dumbfounded for a long time before he recalled that Lin Ling's god force had already reached 100 strands. The last time they fought, Lin Ling had not displayed his god force. It was only when he had used his trump card that Lin Ling had severed his hand with a single slash. The power of that slash was equivalent to 100 strands of god force. Divine energy. However, he had been knocked unconscious, so he only remembered it now.
Lin Ling, you.
Zhongshan struggled to get up from the ground, but he still let out a ferocious voice. Zhongshan, I'll spare your life for Lei Gong's sake. Chapter 4200. The sound of the water is very loud.
The heavenly river is not far away.
The giant ghost nodded. Lin Ling put away the map and was about to go forward to investigate. Lin Ling? At this moment, a surprised voice came from the front. Then, a light flashed and a figure appeared in front of Lin Ling. Upon closer inspection, it was Little South. Of course, it was the girl who was with Longyang in Spirit Light City. Haha, it's really you, Lin Ling. After Little South saw Lin Ling clearly, she could not help but laugh excitedly.
Why are you here too?
Lin Ling was undoubtedly very surprised. Of course, I'm looking for the divine circle. My divine circle is nearby. Oh right, you're here too. Could it be that your divine circle is also here? Haha, that's great.
We're going the same way.
Little South pondered for a moment.
Then, she suddenly thought of something and laughed even louder.
Sister Xueqi, Brother Ox, Lin Ling is here.
Then she shouted behind her. Boom, boom, boom.
2 explosions sounded from below the ground. The soil rolled and 2 figures rushed out, turning into flashes of light. In the next moment, they appeared in front of Lin Ling.
One of them was Xueqi.
Back when they were in the Curishan, she was very familiar with Lin Ling. She had accompanied Lin Ling to fish. As for the one called Brother Ox, although Lin Ling was not familiar with him, they had met many times. Lin Ling knew that he was a cattle herder in the Curishan. In general, they had a good relationship with Lin Ling. Lin Ling, you're here too. It seems that your divine circle must be near the heavenly Yin River. Xueqi was still wearing the farmer's clothes and said with a smile, divine circles can be together? Lin Ling was not familiar with divine circles, so he asked suspiciously. Of course. Some divine circles are easy to find and are not dangerous. Moreover, they are more mature and can stimulate the power of talent more. Some divine circles are still growing and have weaker effects on warriors. Xueqi nodded. Brother Ox, who was beside her, smiled at Lin Ling with a kind look. He said, generally speaking, only the confidants of the gods can get good divine circles. Lin Ling, you must have a good relationship with Lei Gong. It's okay. Lin Ling finally understood. This meant that the divine circles they were searching for did not conflict with each other. They could move forward together. He hurriedly asked, have you found any divine circles? Found it. The entrance is there. Xueqi pointed, only to see a flight of stairs winding down amidst the ruins in front of them. However, after following the entrance for about 3 incense sticks worth of time, there was a mysterious seal there. We had to use all our strength to open it. However, that seal was very strange. It was like a bubble. After it was opened, it would quickly shrink. Furthermore, we discovered that there were people who had entered before us. Then we found it. Xueqi said. Hearing this, Lin Ling was a little surprised and said, someone else entered before us? This made Lin Ling ponder. Those who could find the god's circle were all the confidants of the gods. This meant that those who entered earlier than them were most likely the confidants of the other gods. However, divine circles were shared, so there would not be any conflicts between them. Thinking of this, Lin Ling said quickly, then let's open it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Xueqi and the others wanted to lead the way, but at this moment, a deafening roar came from ahead. The earth shook and dust spread. Hey, someone is coming. The one called Brother Bull was curious. Something is wrong. Brother Lin Ling, do you feel it? On the other hand, Little South felt it and her expression changed. Lin Ling also felt it. He frowned and looked at Little South. The two of them said at the same time, it's the power of the Spirit Nation. In Spirit Light City, he had done missions with Little South. Naturally, he was very familiar with the power of the Spirit Nation. The Spirit Nation is here too. Xueqi immediately felt that things were getting troublesome. However, Lin Ling immediately said, you guys go and open the seal. I will stop them. But Xueqi was worried. Go. Once you open the seal, inform me immediately. We will rush into the Tianyin River together. Lin Ling did not say anything else. The tyrant's song sword appeared in his hand and he immediately rushed forward. Let's go and open the seal. Xueqi and Brother Bull looked at each other and rushed to the entrance of the ruins without hesitation. Lin Ling jumped up and floated in the air. He suddenly realized that on the ground in the distance, there were more than 10 white divine elephants that were hundreds of meters tall. They were galloping toward them. The divine elephants were mighty and radiated divine light. That's Lin Ling. All of a sudden, someone on the divine elephant let out a cry of surprise. Lin Ling? You've met Lin Ling? Catch him. More voices floated out. It was as if Lin Ling's name was extremely famous in the Spirit Nation. Seeing this, Lin Ling's expression did not change. He rushed down and glided on the ground. The tyrant's song sword in his hand slashed out fiercely and landed heavily on the leg of one of the divine elephants. However, the sword that was suppressed with 100 strands of divine power could not cut off the leg of the divine elephant. Roar! 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 However, the divine elephant also let out a painful cry. Although the sword did not cut off its leg, it was still in great pain. Whoosh! Then the divine elephant raised its foot high, wanting to stomp the ant under its foot into meat paste. However, Lin Ling's speed was incomparably fast. When the huge foot landed, he had already floated into the distance. Boom! When the foot landed, the ground instantly cracked and the entire continent seemed to tremble. Lin Ling, more and more divine elephants are coming. At this time, the giant ghost also said to Linling's goal was to stall for time, so he immediately fused his talents. As a result, his speed, attack, and defense all greatly increased. While Linling was fusing his talents, the divine elephants were rushing over from all directions. Upon closer inspection, the divine elephants had already formed a huge meat wall, encircling Linling in the middle and constantly shrinking. Linling, I'll give you a chance. Surrender and we won't touch you. There were many people on the divine elephants. A man in white armor stared at Linling and said indifferently, if you're stubborn, don't blame us for killing you. Let me tell you, the dragon spirit of our spirit nation hates you to the core. As he spoke, Linling, who was surrounded by a large number of divine elephants, also moved. Erupting with 15,000 world speed, he instantly appeared in front of a powerhouse in white armor and stabbed out with his sword. This sword not only contained a terrifying physical strength, but also the power of 100 strands of divine power. Clang! However, when the sword landed on the powerhouse in white armor, there was a crisp sound and the latter only took a step back. So hard. Seeing this, Linling's eyes flashed and he immediately retreated. Chapter 4201. The leader said, I am the K-spirit of the spirit nation. To fall into my hands means that your luck is not good. Now, you have 10 breaths of time to consider. If you do not surrender, we will kill you. Can't I break it? However, Linling did not answer him. Instead, he shook his head. You can't break it. This array has connected the spirit nation's divine elephants and all the experts. No matter how strong you are, your sword cannot kill all of the spirit nation's divine elephants. K-Spirit nodded confidently. He wanted to crush Linling's confidence from the bottom of his heart and force Linling to join the spirit nation. Whoosh! However, just as he finished speaking, an afterimage appeared. Sword light flashed and on one of the divine elephants, one of the experts spat out blood from his neck and then fell from the divine elephant. Bang! When the sound drifted out, the surroundings were silent. This was because K-Spirit had just said that Linling could not break their defense. However, in the next moment, Linling had killed one of them. How was this possible? On the ground, Linling's body appeared, holding his sword at a slanted angle. He said indifferently, I can see that your armors have a mysterious power, connecting with the power of the divine elephant, making your defense extremely strong. However, the strong part is only the armors, the connection between the armors is still weak. Bang! The joint between the armors had always been very difficult to defend. Although many people knew about it, it was very difficult to hit that part. Moreover, ordinary people who were surrounded by such divine elephants would never think of such a weak point. For a moment, the experts on the divine elephants narrowed their eyes and looked at Linling in shock. Linling is indeed extraordinary. After a moment of silence, K-Spirit finally said in a dignified voice. Then, he said coldly, it seems that you are not willing to join the spirit nation. Then, don't blame us for being impolite. Kill him. Remember, guard the place where the armor connects. Don't let Linling take advantage of it. Yes. Countless divine elephants stomped their heavy footsteps toward Linling in a mighty manner. Linling, die! Their voices sounded in unison. Although Linling had found their weakness, he might not be able to attack that weakness in the midst of a chaotic battle. Really? Linling also replied indifferently. With the arrival of the divine elephant, the space for him to dodge became even smaller. Looking up, it was as if an endless mountain was trying to drown them. Luai's true form. Without hiding his strength, Linling heard a tearing sound from behind him. Behind those jellyfish tentacles, a pair of white lightning wings grew crazily. Whoosh! Just as the wings grew out, the expert on the divine elephant threw out a large number of spears. Heavenly God's spear. These spears didn't have any divine power, nor did they have any realm essence. They were the purest form of energy, but they were produced by borrowing the divine elephant's power. Bang bang bang! Countless spears landed at the center, directly breaking through the ground, forming billowing clouds of dust that spread out. Is he dead? On the divine elephant, spears appeared in the hands of the experts again. They raised the spears and pointed them at the ground. However, a vortex suddenly appeared in the dust. It was a vortex formed by dust. Then, lightning flashed, and Lin Ling's figure appeared in front of one of the powerhouses. He held the sword with both hands and slashed down fiercely. At a closer look, the huge sword had all kinds of terrifying power, murderous intent, demonic energy, and even lightning. The Spirit Nation expert wasn't weak either. He also swung the divine spear in his hand. Unfortunately, it didn't have any effect. Because with Lin Ling's current strength, even if he didn't have the power of the 9 states' top 10 martial gods, he was already halfway there. Crack! The sword in both hands slashed down heavily. Not only did it break the divine spear, but it also directly slashed the expert. A large number of runes floated out from his body, and then, his armor exploded. Roar! The 100-meter-tall divine elephant he was sitting on also let out a painful cry, and then it fell down like a mountain. What? Everyone stared at this terrifying scene, and their eyes trembled. Because Lin Ling could actually break the armor. This meant that Lin Ling's sword could kill a divine elephant. One had to know that these divine elephants were no ordinary species. They were Buddha elephants under the veil of the Buddha god. They possessed boundless strength, and even during the era of the gods, they had a great reputation. Could it be that his divine power has reached 200 strands? Not long ago in Spiritual Light City, he wasn't so powerful. Dragon Spirit Han Xie said that Lin Ling is only a little stronger than him. Even Dragon Spirit Han Xie can't break this divine elephant god-locking array. Don't talk nonsense, kill! Voices rang out. Then, the divine elephants raised their legs high, wanting to stomp Lin Ling into dust. Seeing this, Lin Ling's expression didn't change. On his wings, white lightning violently shot out, forming a 100-meter-long electric snake. These electric snakes had the power to paralyze, and it actually reduced the speed of any attack near Lin Ling. Rumble! As those elephant legs heavily smashed down, Lin Ling disappeared again. Red Bodhi, Yellow Bodhi, Blue Bodhi. A voice rang out. Lin Ling had already appeared in front of an elite. His left hand continuously slapped out, and the divine power of Bodhi poured out like a river. Bang, bang, bang. The elites on the divine elephants were all forced back a few steps. At this moment, a sword slashed down. Kacha! Then, spears broke, armor cracked, and those elites were killed with a single slash. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Their divine armors were broken, and the divine elephants they were sitting on also fell down. The sound was like the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. Kill! Seeing this, even more elites threw out divine spears. Those divine spears shot towards Lin Ling like shooting stars. As long as he was hit, even if Lin Ling didn't die, his battle prowess would be affected. Shill! Unfortunately, Lin Ling's current speed was more than 25,000 realms. His wings looked huge, but they drew beautiful trajectories, dodging those spears. Whoosh! Another sword slashed out, and it cut through the armor of a few people. Retreat! Such a straightforward scene finally caused the expression of the leader, Kei Ling, to change. She knew that she couldn't do anything to Lin Ling. After all, Lin Ling could break through armor. And that wasn't all. Lin Ling's speed was even faster than they could catch. If this continued, even more divine elephants would fall. Rumble! A large number of divine elephants started to retreat, and Lin Ling floated in the sky. He didn't chase, because his goal was to enter the heavenly Yin River. Lin Ling, you killed me, Wu Hen. Today, hand over your life. It was unknown whether it was because the battle here was too intense that it attracted the attention of some people, so there was immediately a voice filled with killing intent. In the distant void, a huge sun rose up, and mixed with ferocious power, it quickly smashed towards Lin Ling. This power was incomparably terrifying, and the divine power was beyond imagination. Lin Ling knew that this wasn't something he could withstand.